Good evening. Welcome. We're going to call to order the meeting of the Brawley City Council and successor agency to Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency. This is our regular meeting agenda for September 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. here in City Council chambers. We'll have the roll call.
Councilmember Wharton. Councilmember Castro.
Here.
Councilmember Nava.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Couchman.
Here.
Mayor Hamby.
Here. All right,
Mayor, if I could just make an announcement on Councilmember Wharton's behalf that he had to head to Texas due to the hurricane aftermath, and his company, they're all hands on deck right now with working on that, so he wasn't able to attend, and he apologizes.
thank you for that. All right, we're honored to have Pastor Ecke from Western Avenue Baptist Church and a police chaplain here to give us our invocation.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As was mentioned, I am the senior pastor of Western Avenue Baptist Church. At Western Avenue Baptist Church, we are growing together in Christ through the understanding as we continue to learn strictly from God's Word. And so I would welcome anyone here to come visit us. Our services are at 10:15 on Sunday mornings. We also have Sunday evening services at 6, and we have activities throughout the week. So, and we're really well known for our children's program. We start Awana next month. So anyone with children who would like to expose them to the teaching of the Lord are welcome to bring them by at any time. So we certainly would welcome you guys. Well, with that, let me just read a brief psalm and I'll open up in prayer. Psalm 117 verses 1 and 2 reads, "Praise the Lord, all nations. Extol him, all peoples. For great is his steadfast love toward us. And the faithfulness of the Lord endures forever. Praise the Lord." Let me open up in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day that you have given us. You are indeed the creator of all the heavens and the earth. Everything around us sings of your existence and your majesty and all of your attributes. Father, I thank you for these servants that are given to us in this city. We recognize that there is nothing that we have that has not been given to us from up above. And so, Father, I pray that for these servants of this city, while they serve this city, they ultimately serve you as a minister of good for the people of Brawley. So I pray for the proceedings tonight and all the issues that they will talk about, all the topics that they will cover. I pray that you be glorified, that they would be granted wisdom and guidance as they consider these matters, understanding that they serve the people of this wonderful city. And I pray that your name would be glorified in the process. And Father, we pray that for all the matters that they are discussing and working upon, that your light would shine upon this city as well, that the outcome would be that your name would be greatly proclaimed in all the land. And Father, we thank you for all of your blessings upon us for this day, for these servants, and this opportunity to be able to get work done for the city. And we lift these things up in the name of your Son and our Savior, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I'd like to have our city attorney and birthday boy, Bill Smurden, lead us in the pledge.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we go to the approval of the agenda, I'd like to make a request that we modify one of the items under regular business 5I, which is a discussion and potential action to approve the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Brawley's request to close Main Street between North and South Plaza and to sell alcohol during cattle call festivities. I'd like to request that we split those into two motions, two votes, one for the street closure and one for the alcohol sales.
I'll make a request to approve the agenda, splitting those two items.
I'll
Make a
second.
motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded with the modification. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, thank you. Moving on to item 2, public appearances and comments, not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record. You're not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Anyone here for public comment? come on up. Or come on down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Julie Reeves, and I just handed you guys a paper, and I'd like to read from it. There are several pictures here. One is the tower out at the airport, and it has pictures of two signs that are posted out there. The first one is guidelines for working in radio frequency environments. All personnel should have electromagnetic energy awareness training. All personnel entering this site must be authorized. Obey all posted signs. Assume all antennae are active before working on antennas. Notify owners and disable appropriate transmitters. Maintain minimum 3 feet clearance from all antennas. Do not stop in front of antennas. Use personal RF monitors while working near antennas. Never operate transmitters without shields during normal operation. Do not operate base station antennas in equipment room. The second sign says, notice RF controlled area beyond this point. Radio frequency emissions may exceed FCC standards for general public exposure. Only authorized workers are permitted to enter. For your safety, obey all posted signs. Maintain minimum distance of 7 feet from all antennas. Do not stop in front of antennas. And then a number for further information. So, my question is, if these warning signs are posted at this tower over at the airport, why would you put something like this in a baseball park where children play, which is the fourth photo? So I'm asking that you do not put that tower in that area. And I'd also like to ask, I've emailed all of you and have asked several questions, but I never have gotten a response from any of you. And I'm curious about what was told to me by a friend, that she had a conversation with one of you, and you had stated that you had tried to put this tower in a different park location over on the east side, but the neighborhood didn't want it there, and so you guys reneged on putting it there, instead moved it over here. So I just want to ask why you won't put it over there, but you move it to another place in another neighborhood. Nobody wants it in their neighborhood. So we ask that you please find another location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, guys. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jim Abadi. I'm a resident of the Valley. And I'm not sure, it's very difficult to read sometimes your agenda, but I do notice that you see 4 potential litigation cases. I'm not sure what they are, but they are referring to one of the items that Mrs. Reeves just talked about. The tower is why I'm here to speak on about that. I reviewed your guys' environmental review and had a lot of questions about the thorough review of that. I mean, some of it downgraded, especially the aesthetic part, which we know a 110-foot tower in the middle of a park is going to be a very big eyesore. And the location where it's being put right next to the batting cages, so how it would not affect that area is beyond me, because when you do batting cage practice, you don't just do it inside the cage. It's well done on the outside with soft toss and everything else. And many of you guys, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with baseball or played baseball or watched kids practice there, but they use that whole outside facility. And so putting a tower right next to it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And also, I'm not sure if you guys, where the process is at. I have not been as involved as I probably should be. But if it's threat of litigation from a private industry, have you guys looked for other suitable sites? You've had a lot of outreach from the people here about their opposition. Your commission was opposed to it. Listen to the people here. Those are the people you serve. So I really ask you guys, really consider if that's part of your litigation, don't be afraid of their challenging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mary Manueli. And first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Abadi. He has, and I'd like you to listen to him because he is, I would say, probably 75% responsible for that park being there. And I think when he put this park together, he didn't have any intention to have a cell tower like this put in that park. I have 3 sons, and they all have children, and every one of my grandchildren have participated in that park, T-ball, Little League, and I am completely opposed to this cell tower going, and as is the rest of my family, who could not be here tonight because they had other meetings and things that they had to go to. So I'm speaking for my entire family here this evening. Anyway, and then the other thing that Julie said too, that I have sent 2 emails on 2 different subjects, also to the council, to every single member on the council, and I only received answers from one, and I'm not going to name who it was, but I received 1 response, 1 time from one of you. And I just feel like when people, send you emails and that they're sitting there, are concerned about the city, that you can at least acknowledge that, yes, I received this, and I'll get back to you. But, I was a little disappointed, I worked really hard last year for this city to try to get the Brawley, beautification thing done with HGTV, and I'm proud of this city, and I'm not from here, but I'm really proud of it. I've lived here for 40 years, and I just expect our city to do better and not do this to our city and by putting that cell tower up. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I may make a comment, Mr. Mayor? My business cards are set up at the front. Anyone who wants to contact me can reach out directly to that cell phone, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I have also reached out to many folks, and they haven't returned the calls or the messages pertaining to this matter.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Laura McKenzie. I'm a resident. I'm a teacher at Brawley High School. And I've said before, I'm in opposition to the location of the cell phone tower. I went to the city planning meeting, and I heard the representative of the cell tower company say that he had looked for other locations, 11, in fact, other locations, but that they were rejected for one reason or another. And some of those reasons that he gave were that he couldn't get in touch with the owners of the property. And I think that's on him. That's his responsibility as a representative of the cell phone tower to find a suitable location that's not in the middle of our only baseball field for our high school students. Where else are they going to do batting practice? At the Little League field? Honestly, really, that's what you're taking away. You're taking away from the high school students. And as a high school teacher and as a parent of a son who wants to play baseball for the high school team, I have a very vested interest in this. I just think that your job as a city council is to listen to your constituents, to listen to the city planning, and to, do what's best for the city. The cell phone tower company, they don't care. They just want money. They don't care that our kids don't have another place to practice. They don't care that it's right in the middle of the Little League baseball field. They don't care about our kids. They care about making money and what's best for them. And yes, it'll be what I heard, $1,600 a month for the city. Quite frankly, that's laughable. That's not much. I would have expected a lot more money for all of this fuss that this has created. So I'm just really encouraging you guys, do the right thing. don't be afraid if they're threatening a lawsuit. You will have the city's support. We will support you if you decide, hey, we're going to take it, and these people want to challenge us and want to take a lawsuit, fine, we'll take you on. The city will support you, the people will support you. But we won't if it goes the other way. And if you decide, oh, well, we're too afraid, we don't want a lawsuit, what could happen? People are going to be really upset in that situation. I voted for almost all of you. George, because I knew you from high school. Luke, because I know you because of my mom. Mr. Couchman, because I taught your grandson. Ramon, actually, because you had a nice name. And I thought, oh, this guy sounds like a nice guy. You know? I'm being honest. I did. I saw your name, I don't know you, and I was like, he sounds like a good guy. I'll vote for him. So I'm not like trying to threaten, but I am a person who takes an interest. I do vote. I do participate. I show up when I care and when it's vested. So, I would encourage you, don't be afraid of this potential litigation. Don't be afraid to take a stand and say, hey, you know what, guys? We want the $1,600 a month. Find a different location. Don't take away from our kids. That's all I'm asking. You want to put a cell phone tower, fine. Don't put it right there in that location. That's going to take away from our kids. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Brett Levitt. I was born and raised in Brawley, and now I'm raising my family here. I was a 2000 Brawley Cattle Call Queen and have always been involved in the community. If anyone should take pride in their hometown, it should be somebody like me. However, all you have to do is drive down Main Street to see there's not much to take pride in anymore. Our city has been on a downward spiral for several years now. Drugs and gangs are rampant in this town. Vagrants are all over. Theft is out of control, as nothing is a crime in this state anymore. I say all of this to highlight the two bright lights in this community that I am proud of and that I love to show off. One, our beautiful cattle call grounds, and two, our Little League fields. My kids have grown up on those fields, and I have coached them, going to nearly every other Little League field in the valley. I can tell you, our fields are the best. They are the best fields in the valley, hands down. Thank you to Jimmy and Deborah Abadi and our city. As someone who spent nearly every night there this year from March through part of July, almost 5 months, I can tell you that I'm strongly against the cell tower going in there. A cell tower would be a hideous structure in one of the nicer areas of our town. It will be a logistics nightmare with large maintenance trucks coming in and out while kids are playing there. It takes up practice space for our junior league and high school boys. To think the spot picked out is a good one is just absurd. So I'm here to encourage you to listen to your constituents. Listen to those of us who are actually out there with our kids, watching them grow up there, playing with them, practicing with them. We don't want it there. It seems like there are so many other locations you could put it. I just don't know who thought that a kids' sports complex was the perfect spot. I'm sorry I've been unable to attend meetings on this topic until now, but many of them were held on nights I was actually at those fields coaching. Please stand strong, councilmen, and find a new place for this tower. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening, gentlemen. My name is John Grass. I live at 1087 Calle Luna. And I'm not exactly sure where this is going to land. I don't think any more needs to be said in terms of encouraging you to go one way or the other. But I do want to encourage you to think that this is probably not the first time this is going to come up. Technology changes. And I looked thoroughly into the city general plan to see if there was some sort of planning mechanism for the placement of towers. I couldn't find it. It may be there, but I couldn't find it. But going forward, and I'm looking forward to, this is going to come up again. And I think the city probably should be prepared to have it built into the city plan so that it's well thought out, it's got community input, and the issue of alternative sites is explored, and it also provides cover, if you will, for lack of a better word, for any potential litigation. If something doesn't fit into the city plan, then that's our reason for denying. So I'm not exactly sure if some effort could be put into strengthening our city general plan to accommodate this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Michael Reeves. You know who I am. It's about my 4th time coming here to speak to you guys. You already know where I stand, but I'm going to say it again. And you've heard many, many, many good reasons. There's so many good reasons not to put that tower there, but when you haven't heard, you heard it from me last time, but I'm going to tell you again. I'm going to remind you who I am. I'm a Little League coach. I'm a juniors baseball coach. I'm a soccer coach. I'm a basketball coach. I'm a football coach. I'm a Little League board member. I'm a school board member. I'm a church board member in charge of youth programs. My point is, I serve the youth repeatedly, constantly, every day of my life. And I've been affected by cell phone radiation. I used to listen in the same ear every time I drive with my left hand and listen with my right hand, and I got a brain tumor directly on my brain inside my right ear canal, and my life was never the same. Deaf in my right ear, my face doesn't function properly, my eye was almost sewn shut because I couldn't blink. Finally started to recover a little bit. I'm reminded of this every time I take a picture. How Mary Emanuele spoke about her sons. And I went to her son's 40th birthday party last year, and there's a lot of fun pictures, except I hate every one that I'm in. Because when time freezes, you could see the damage that's permanently done to my face. And when I go to parties like that, and you're in a setting with 50, 80, 100 people, and there's all this commotion, and I can't hear what's being said because there's so much noise and they're talking into the ear that doesn't work anymore. And so what I think when you talk about putting this tower there, where I told you last time, the radiation obviously doesn't affect everybody the same, but it affects me. And I'm directly involved in all these programs. How can I go coach? How can I go watch my sons? How can I go watch my friends' kids? It affects me in a way that changes my life. I also told you how my son gets migraines from electronics. That's going to be tough for him to play Little League there. It's going to be tough for him to play high school there. It's going to be tough for him to come watch his freshman brother play baseball there. It changed my life. It's not worth it if one kid is affected by it. It might not happen for 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, but if one person comes and they're practicing there or playing or just watching people play and they're affected by it, it wasn't worth it. There's other places. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Nicole Rothfleisch, Brawley resident. I just passed out a couple of documents to you that are actually your own documents, and this will partly answer Mr. Grass's question. First of all, I want to just say that If the city wants this tower, they should do it because they genuinely believe that it's in the best interest of our community, the people, the youth, and this recreational park area, not out of fear that these out-of-town bullies might sue you if you don't do what they want. I've spoken with several attorneys who handle these kinds of issues, and they believe, just to get their, opinion on if I'm on the right track or whatever, they believe that you, the city, are on strong legal ground to have the right to say no to a discretionary action such as this without being forced to by a court. It's simply saying that you have city-owned property where recreation is going on and you don't want a huge commercial tower like this on it. The fact that you're deciding on city property versus private property puts you in an even stronger position. Vertical Bridge does not dictate to the city of Brawley what we have to do. They can find somewhere more appropriate in a commercial area to put this tower. So if we can just look at your Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8C, Communication Facilities, and I only printed you the first page of 19, but I highlighted some of the standards that you are to go by when deciding on matters such as this. These standards are intended to protect and promote public health, safety, community welfare, and the unique visual character of the city by encouraging the orderly development of communication infrastructure. Let's look at number 1. Protect residential areas and other land uses from potential adverse impacts of towers and antennas. And I want to say we haven't done another big push on petition signatures because it's hot, but 723 have taken the time to actually sign it, and the majority of them are from Parkside, so in the residential area most closely affected. 2, encourage the location of towers and regeneration facilities in non-residential areas. Minimize the number of towers throughout the community. Mr. Gast said at the Planning Commission meeting that there are about 20 towers around the town, he thinks, and we're a small town. How many do we need? They can co-locate. Jump to number 5, encourage users of towers and antennas to locate them to the extent possible in areas where the adverse impact on the community is minimal. 6, that would be like, in a commercial or industrial area. 6, encourage users of towers and antennas to configure them in a way that minimizes the adverse visual impact of the towers. This would be almost twice as tall as the lights over there and stick out as a blight. 8, jump down to 8, consider the public health and safety of communication towers. Well, you already have pictures of signs warning that will be on this legally because it's hazardous. Avoid potential damage to adjacent properties from tower failure through engineering and careful siting of tower structures. And if there's tower failure, they only have a measly $1 million policy to cover any damages. Number 10, encourage the due consideration of the city's general plan zoning map existing land uses. It's already existing as a recreational land use, and environmentally sensitive areas in approving sites for the location of towers and antennas. 11, minimize the amount of private infrastructure systems in public right-of-ways. Well, they would be going right in and out, in between the left field line and the batting cage with their maintenance trucks. Okay, next, if you want to jump over to the other page I gave you, that is what the Planning Commission has to go by to determine approval of the CUP, which you are now going to have to determine if you're going to stand by your Planning Commission's decision. The conditional use permit to install the cell tower protects the best interest, health, safety, and welfare of the public in general. B, the conditional use permit to install the cell tower complies with all the standards and conditions applicable in zoning district in which it's proposed to be located. C, the conditional use permit to install a cell tower is in accordance with in furtherance of the Brawley General Plan. And I don't know if your Code of Ordinances is part of the general plan, but I would assume that they should all work together. Any special neighborhood plans or policies adopted by the city regarding the development area or any approved concept plan. D, the proposed install of a 110-foot cell tower is adequately served by and will not impose an undue burden upon the public improvements and rights of way by which it will be served or benefited. Well, it's obviously, as you've heard all these people speak, imposing an undue burden on our youth and the families that use it. Jump down to E. Any impacts created by the proposed cell tower on adjacent property are adequately mitigated. There's been no mitigation because it wasn't even a mitigated negative declaration, which I believe was very wrong in the way the sequel was done. It should have been at minimum a mitigated negative declaration with some of these impacts looked at. The design of the cell tower mitigates substantial environmental problems. It's compatible with adjacent structures. It's not materially detrimental to the enjoyment or valuation of the property adjacent to the site. Well, hundreds of homeowners and families that use it say that it's detrimental to the enjoyment or value of it. And then the last one is that it meets all the laws. So I just want to briefly quote a couple of the planning commissioners, because you've got some pretty good planning commissioners, and I believe they made a good decision, and I hope that you'll stand by it. And these are some of the things that they said when they voted to deny this permit. The true owners of the city are the citizens, and they have a voice and are part of the process. So I agree with them in my opposition to the tower. I'm not convinced that it protects the best interest or the health and safety of the kids and the welfare of the public. I want to encourage growth in the city, and there is a time and place for it, but this doesn't seem like the right place. I absolutely think it's a broad aesthetic issue. To some individuals, it can cause a burden to them emotionally. Absolutely. Being in real estate, I think that looking at that tower is a detriment to property value. Those are just some of the items mentioned by multiple public members. So I know I'm out of time, so I will wrap it up and ask that you would please take all of this into consideration as you determine how to handle this appeal. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Janelle Zinn. I'm a resident here of Brawley and was born and raised here. I just wanted to say that I disagree with the location of the cell tower and the cell tower. I think that we could find $1,600 a month revenue by using the street sweeper. And if we had a street sweeper, you know, like how they do in big cities where you have to move your car from the street for 2 hours, and so the street sweeper can come by, because honestly, I see the street sweeper going by on Monday, and I'm like, what good is that doing? Like, there's cars, he's just blowing the dirt back into the middle of the street, and then when the cars go by, it's getting blown back into the, it's not getting pushed into the gutter, the dirt and what have you, on the curb. So that, I think, is an easy fix to bring revenue into the city. And I think it would make Brawley look better, because we're paying the wages for the street sweeper, we're paying the gas, we're paying for getting hardly any benefit out of it. So I would just, I won't go very long, but I just really, I don't like the idea of the cell tower because of the health risks, and yeah, just, I really want, you know, we have a great group of men here. I think you guys can stand strong and protect the citizens of Brawley, and I think that's what Brawley deserves. So I hope that you guys will choose to not approve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, if not, thank you all for coming and voicing your concerns. We take that into consideration when we have to make a vote, and we appreciate all the time and effort that you put into researching the issue and coming here and making your comments to us. If there are no other public comments, we will move on to Item 3, consent agenda. Items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Consent agenda carries. Item 4, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Been a lot going on, but I will keep it brief in deference to our huge, large agenda ahead of us. But there are, just a couple things that I would like to point out, highlight. Since our last council meeting, there's been 3 requests for proposals done by our staff. Comprehensive grant writing services, that was due on the 23rd of July. We have received 8 proposals, interviewed 3 firms, and are in final contract negotiations with one of them, and that will be brought for your approval at the next next council meeting, excuse me. The other 2 RFPs, they are due this Friday, September 10th, and they are for engineering and project management services. We've received several inquiries and are hoping for a good response on that one, and also auditing services for our financials. We have received 3 proposals to date and anticipate up to about 6 responses or so, which is pretty good. So for our financial audits, that is a good practice to change them up, every few years. That was a lot of work from all of the staff, the departments to go through these RFPs. They're not an easy projects. So appreciate all the staff's work into presenting, getting those RFPs out. Additionally, and lastly, I would like to offer us, the city staff, to come to your service meetings, service club meetings, group meetings, anything now that we're hopefully getting more to an in-person type scenario, and for questions, providing updates on anything, city events, projects, community concerns, any of those issues. Staff, including myself, will come out to your club and speak with you all. Please give me a call, give the city manager's office a call, and we'll try to work something out if that is something desired by any member out here. And with that, I'll end it to keep things moving along.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for all your hard work. We're glad to have you here, and for all the work that the city staff puts into keeping the city moving. All right, we will move on to item 5, regular business. And 5A is an update on City of Brawley declaration of local emergency as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. Overall outlook presented by our Fire Chief, Mike York.
Good evening, Mayor Hamby, members of the council and city staff. Mike York, Fire Chief. Tonight, just a brief update. I have provided each one of you the numbers that have been posted on the current Imperial County Department of Public Health website, COVID-19 dashboard. Of note, it's notable to bring up that we're starting to see an uptick in cases throughout the county. So as you guys are aware, we had a previous single day high of 440 persons in a single day, and we tapered down to where we were having like maybe 1 or 2 persons testing positive in a single day. As of this last week, we're seeing some numbers spike up, and we had the recent peak of 71 just last week. 71 persons in our valley identified as COVID positive in a single day, and but it's very volatile. As you can see, at the end of the week, it was down to 6 again. We have 351 active cases in our valley. My last several updates, those numbers were in the teens or low tens of numbers. The Brawley and Fire EMS response, we're starting to see our calls for COVID-related response increase again. So we're at a current of 320 calls for COVID-related and 158 that were for COVID-positive identified patients. The Imperial County website, the vaccination dashboard redirects you to the California Department of Public Health. Some notable numbers, we have about, within our county, 241,000 doses were administered. It's interesting, within the state of California, we've reached 2/3. So 67.3% of our census population in California have been fully vaccinated. Another 10% are partial. So great strides are being made in the vaccination world within our state and within our county. We're alongside those numbers, even though they don't post those directly. Since we were dark through August, it is important to note that we have an amended health officer order that became effective on the 18th of August. It's a universal indoor face covering regardless of vaccination status. This was directly due to increased positivity rates, hospitalization rates, and effectively the Delta variant infections were increasing faster in our county than we were seeing in other counties. The Delta variant, which I think is probably overtaking most of the news and all the conversation. Whenever there's a virus, there's always variants. The Centers of Disease Control and the scientists that track these things, they give them the Greek alphabet. I believe we're up to like Kappa or Iota at this point. So 8 or 9 individual variants. It's important to note that within the variants, especially the Delta, there's already 2 children's subvariants in the Delta. From the California Department of Public Health, we have just shy of 42,000 cases of known Delta variant in California. What's interesting to note is that the original variant of the virus that caused, so patient 1 in the United States, that variant is no longer being detected. So we've already moved on where we're not detecting the original type. We're moved on to where we're only seeing the variants. Mm-hmm. And the Delta variant accounts for 98% of new COVID cases within the state of California. So some of the important things to note, it's associated with approximately a 200% increased transmission. So we're seeing it where it basically if a patient or if a person is sick, if they're experiencing symptoms, they can infect those around them a lot easier. So I didn't include any numbers today because the studies are all over the place. What we do know is that vaccinations have some efficacy versus the Delta variant. We don't have hard numbers. They're too unreliable to relate. What is shown, though, is that hospitalizations are almost completely within the unvaccinated area. So whether they have what's called a breakthrough infection where you're vaccinated and you still get sick, we're seeing that increase with Delta variants, but we're seeing the persons that are hospitalized are almost entirely within the unvaccinated population. That's not just within our state, that's nationwide. As always, locally, we're continuing to work with our state and local county partners. Our supply chain for personnel protective equipment and any sort of related materials has been robust. We're not short on anything right now, but we're continuing to monitoring those supplies. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Any questions?
Not here, sir.
No? Thank you, sir.
Why you guys look at me?
We're just looking that way.
Am I the nosy one?
You're the last one in the line, sir. You look this way.
You're self-conscious about it, Ross. Like
Yeah.
I know.
And then 5A2, discussion and potential action to extend resolution number 2021-19. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, proclaiming the existence of an ongoing local emergency for COVID-19.
Mayor, I apologize
Is that
for,
just a-
at the beginning of the meeting, I should have requested that that be pulled. That was done in the last meeting in July with the anticipation of being dark in August when it normally would have been. And as we're all aware, I wasn't quite at that meeting, so that should have been pulled by me. I apologize for that.
No problem.
It'll be coming back from the 60 days from that point.
Okay, so we don't have to act on that. Okay.
Item 5B, discussion and potential action to accept an $877 donation for the purchase of 12 6-foot U.S. flags and accessories to display around the Veterans Memorial Wall during Memorial Day and Veterans Day. This will be presented by our Parks and Recreation Manager, Rachel Fonseca. Backup is on pages 46 and 47.
Good evening, members of the council. Rachel Fonseca, Parks and Recreation Manager. Mr. Richard Dockstader, a retired U.S. Marine, would like the city to use his $877 donation to purchase 12 6 U.S. flags and accessories to display around the Veterans Memorial Wall on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. The purpose of the display is to honor all veterans and active duty personnel for their dedication and service to our nation. Mr. Dockstader would like it to be named the Display of Valor. He chose this name because valor is great courage in the face of danger, especially in battle, which is what service members exhibit. The flags and accessories will remain the property of the city. Mr. Dockstader suggested for a small fee, a ribbon can be tied around a flagpole to commemorate a veteran or active duty member, which will help offset the cost of future replacement and setup.
Okay, okay. That's great. Do we have a motion to approve this item? Moved. Is there a second?
I'll second the item.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
And please thank Mr.
Yes,
Dockstetter on our
yes.
behalf
Yeah,
for
please
his
do.
generous donation. Thank you.
Yes. Item 5C, discussion and potential action for direction on the draft utility user tax ordinance presented by Carla Romero, our finance director, and Bill Smurden, our city attorney. Backup is on pages 48 through 81.
Good evening, council members. I always feel like I have heavy agenda items, not like fun ones, but it's very nice to see you all in person again. When we were crafting the ordinance over the last few months, we've been talking to a lot of external experts in doing so. We have gathered the forces of our consultants, so we had 2 attorneys that helped us out, as well as our city attorney, our city manager, and myself. Had several meetings in order to draft this ordinance for you. We also had a contract administrator that focuses on utility user tax revenue, remittances, and making sure that all of that new language is incorporated. And then also somebody that specializes in just audits and all of that for utility user taxes. So with all of that expertise, we brought to you an ordinance that is 16 pages long instead of 8. So very much extended in its form. But today what we want to do is provide you a general overview of that ordinance and that draft and those amendments. We also want to give you an update on activities that we have from now until the tax measure on November the 2nd, and then also gather any feedback either today or in the coming weeks on the ordinance itself. I know that I have read it probably 20 times, and just today I caught 2 more little typos. So they're bound to happen, and I know we're going to continue to find them. We don't have to make any decisions tonight, and so we'll go over kind of the process and what all this means during the presentation. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Armando. So the utility user tax was first adopted in 1991. The rate has varied and has been up to 5%, depending on when those amendments were done. It has been renewed 7 different times, but the current UUT does expire May 31st of 2022. In order for it not to expire, it does have to be approved by the voters again, and so we had to put it on a special ballot for November the 2nd, 2021. The annual revenue that the city receives from the utility user tax is roughly $1.9 million. That equates to about 9% of all of our general fund revenues, which are $17.3 million. However, it does equate to 19% of the tax revenue. The tax revenue is really the core of our operations, and that tax revenue is about $10.9 million on an annual basis. And this utility user tax makes up 1.9% of that total, or 19% of it. The UUT revenue is 100% collected here locally, remitted to the city 100%, and used for all local services. There is oversight by our external independent auditors on an ongoing basis. We do also have ongoing UUT audits to make sure that all of the revenue is being captured and remitted to the city according to the current parameters of the ordinance. It is protected from state takeaways, and so the state can't just come in and say, we want you to remit the UUT to us versus to you. That would have to be a voter-approved change. So it is locally controlled city services. And it currently has a rate of 4%. I mentioned earlier that it has been as high as 5%, but the current rate is 4%. The 2021 ballot measure timeline, we have passed our review in April. And then we also did 2 reviews in June, one with our resolutions, and then we adopted our resolutions in July, the 3 resolutions that were required to put the ballot measure on the November election, special election. We, in August, worked diligently on trying to craft the language for the ordinance before you today. And so we're presenting to you a draft in September. We could come every single meeting between now and November 2nd, if need be, and the election is scheduled for November the 2nd. Thank you, Armando. So this here is just a quick visual of all of the city services. I mentioned several times in the past that I'm really intrigued by the city of Brawley because it is a full-service city, and it is very unique to have such a full-service city. The items in green are called enterprise funds. Those are self-sufficient, they generate their own income and provide their own services, but they are operated through city operations. Everything in blue is funded with the support of the utility user tax to some extent. We talked a little bit earlier about the revenue side of things. Police and fire combined are 53% of all of those in blue. And so when we're talking about this utility user tax and we're talking about the importance of what it supports and what it provides to the residents, we're talking about all of these functions here in blue. And if the tax were not to pass, we would be coming back with a plan of action to eliminate, reduce, change these services in the future. And that could happen as early as December after, if that were to occur. And then also we have contract services that are supported by our partners, Allied Waste and Imperial Valley Transit. And so together we provide these services to the residents. And so this tax really is important to the city. And so we're here to also educate the public. As our city manager mentioned earlier tonight, we are here and available to answer any questions that the public might have, to go to service groups, provide any updates. So we are working on updating our website, but we cannot campaign for the tax. We're just here to educate and tell people what it is that it provides. So with that in mind, I'd like to kind of focus back on the ordinance itself, and then happy to, of course, take any questions along the way.
Carla, before we go into
Yes.
that, do you have any proposed modified budgets at this point, like in case that measure wouldn't pass? I know we've been brainstorming, but do you have anything on paper at this point?
We do. We actually spent an entire day, the executive team, in this very chamber, literally about 7 hours, just last week, and made sure that we had all of our talking points, and together as a team came up with what those possible reductions would look like. And we are prepared to present those at a future council meeting. Just looking for an appropriate time on the agenda, since we have some heavy items coming up.
And it was a very painful meeting, believe me. And
I recall meeting up with you afterwards, seeing your face.
And it is still a work in progress, but we do have a general framework of what those services would be affected. So, but it's not ready for advertisement, but it will very soon.
Yes, sir. As soon as possible, please. I'm very concerned about that. I'd like to see what the numbers look like.
Absolutely. So, next one, Armando. Thank you. So why are we in need of updating our ordinance? We haven't updated it since 1992 and 1998. There's been a lot of new modernized services that have occurred since then. The pictures on the right kind of illustrate where we were in that era versus where we are today. We also have a lot of updated regulatory requirements that need to be incorporated into the ordinance to make sure that we are capturing what is currently required of the city having a utility user tax. It does provide additional clarity as well to those that provide the services that are subject to the utility user tax. So it really is a guide for those vendors in order to allow them to be able to know how it is that they need to, when and how they remit the tax to the city. Again, it was expanded quite significantly from 8 pages to 16 pages, so I realize it is a lot of reading and it is a lot of legal jargon. So I do apologize for that, but it is a legal document. It is updated only if the ballot measure passes on November the 2nd. So this is really just a precursor to allow vendors and the public to really understand what it is that ballot measure translates into. The ballot measure is 75 words. It's very small, but here it is a document that tells you what that translates into and how that tax would be collected. So as mentioned earlier, we do have several meetings still to review. There's no pressure again, just a general overview tonight. Next slide, Armando. So the utility user tax ordinance focuses on a couple of sections. I want to go over 5, kind of high level. It does have expanded definitions to include any modernized services and language used by utility providers. Some examples of those are auxiliary telecommunication services and video services, so all of our video internet services, things that really were not existent or were barely in their infancy stage back in 1998. We added language regarding postpaid or prepaid services and just communications in general. So you'll see that a lot of that language has been included into this new proposed ordinance. We do have additional clarifications to provide guidance to the city, the utility providers, and the external auditing firms, should they be required. So, again, extended verbiage regarding the collection of tax, the remittance back to the city, the fact that it's due by the end of the following month. The auditing and billing records need to be retained for 3 years, which is a legal limit in order for the city to potentially go back and verify that all of the revenue was collected. And there's also reference to words such as shall include but is not limited to. And that's really used to reference any potential future utility services. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what will change, but certainly a lot has changed since 1998. So we want to be able to capture that, those other additional components as they may arise as much as possible. And then we also added modernized services that didn't exist back in that 1992-1998 update. So again, most of those are focused on telecommunications. Think about the internet, think about streaming videos, things of that nature, cell phone capabilities. And then back then, there also probably weren't a lot of bundled services, if any. That's kind of a new technology where you have one provider, but they can provide you internet and alarm service and kind of the whole bundle, one payment. And so those types of services are also referenced, that certain components of them would be subject to the utility user tax. Next slide. And then the other two updates that were focused on the ordinance were either federal, state mandates, referencing oversight agencies, and here's some examples. We included some verbiage regarding laws of the state of California, California Public Utilities Codes, laws of the United States, Federal Communications Commissions. There's also 3 acts referenced within the document. They're listed on here for your reference. And then we also had some guidance regarding current court cases or recent court cases or appellate cases that really referenced how the tax is collected on things like when an agency provides credits. One good example was like the utility electricity taxes, where they provide credits while those credits are still subject to the utility user tax. And so there was a recent appellate case. And so the document also addresses those types of things and when those taxes are still remitted to the city or subject to remittance. And so then throughout the red line, there's also removing any reference to the prior ordinance because it would be repealed and replaced in its entirety should the tax be approved by the voters. And then we also wanted to reference what's called a transitional period. So we still have to, if it's approved, go out and tell the vendors that are newly subject to the tax or the current vendors that they need to remit additional documentation to the city. So we want to provide them an appropriate timeline to do that. And so we thought 60 days it would be appropriate after the current ordinance it expires on May the 31st. However, those efforts would really start earlier. And so that would just be an extended time for us to continue to communicate during that time frame. So here's where we are as far as the ballot measure timeline. We're right in the middle there where you see the yellow dot. We want to continue to provide educational outreach, updates on the city ordinance, and then the special election, again, as I mentioned before, is on November 2nd, 2021, which will be around the corner. Before you know it, we'll be celebrating New Year's. So definitely can't wait. And, we wanted to provide this as early as possible in order for some initial feedback from both staff, council members, city attorney, and anyone else that might have any comments or questions regarding the ordinance. So that really concludes my presentation. I'm happy to go back to any slide or try to answer any questions at this time.
I'm just curious, what else is on the ballot? Is there anything else or is just this one item?
For the city of Brawley, it's the only item.
Just this item.
There are other items for county, school districts, et cetera, but for the city of Brawley, that would be the only item.
Do we know what the cost is going to be? For our
We
share?
we have estimates, Carla.
The estimate was $25,000. And I did speak with the county, and I know that they were, I believe, last week already getting a draft of the publication that would be mailed out, so that should be going out shortly here.
Okay.
By mail.
Any other questions? Okay. If not, thank you, Carla. I don't know if we have any other direction. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll discuss it at another meeting.
Sure, and we'll continue to look at it as well. So we always, every time we read it, we find something or have a different questions.
Yeah, if you have problems sleeping, put it by your bedstand like I do, and then gets me to sleep most nights.
16 pages. Sorry, Carla.
Good advice.
I have all the exciting stuff, don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam, do you still have that phone that was pictured there?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Nice.
You still have a landline?
Mine has the dial. Mine, I
The
turn,
rotary
I
dial?
put my finger in.
Do you have a landline? He has one of the only rotary dial cell phones.
Rotary dial cell phone. Yeah. With the big numbers so I can read them, because I'm so old according to you guys.
No, you're
I
not.
got
I don't
that.
think you're old.
We don't think you're
I
old.
think you're like barely hitting your prime.
Tyler, I think we need to add something to the agenda that says something like, making fun of Sam,
Harass
not
Sam?
to exceed 4 minutes in
There
one
you go.
meeting.
Not to exceed 4 minutes.
That would cut our meetings in half.
Yeah, at least in half,
There
yeah.
you go.
Sam seems to be the
I was
target.
being, I'm not making fun of. I was
I
being
know.
serious.
No, you're right. You were.
Should I hope I look like? I hope I'm in your condition when I retire. I mean, shoot, I probably won't. I'll be all beat up.
You continue walking
Yeah.
1,600 miles, maybe.
We're doing it again next year.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Are we going on?
Right
Yeah,
along.
we're going to move on to item 5D, discussion and potential action to approve the graffiti abatement program and fund a full-time position through general fund reserves. This will be presented by our police chief, Jimmy Duran. Backup is on pages 82 and 83.
Good afternoon, members of the council, city manager, city staff, and public. It is said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but somehow that one in the middle is speaking like 10,000 words to me right now.
That's not even right.
But, I wanted to put a few photos out there because it really shows the condition our city is in. I know that sometimes not everybody gets to see this because not everybody lives where this is occurring. There's some hot spots in our city that are constantly looking this way. And I think this really reflects what we're really combating out there when we talk about our graffiti abatement program. And before I go into why we need it, I would also like to go to the next slide around the place. I would also like to show to you what else is out there, not just the graffiti, but it's also tons of illegal dumping. And again, you don't see it everywhere, but there's some hotspots in an area where we're constantly fighting with this.
Those are the condominiums that I told you about.
Yes,
Yeah.
some of these are some of those that were, in the past, we unfortunately, some of these things are done by the homeless, but a lot of them are not. It's just illegal dumping. Some members of our community, for some reason, don't get it that they need to take the trash to the dump. And for some reason, they end up there. I mean, mattresses, for some reason, very common. It keeps happening and happening over again. And you may be thinking, well, what does this have to do with our graffiti abatement program? And that's what I'm going to explain here in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about graffiti abatement. We all know it's a problem in our community. I think we can all admit that. And we know that it constitutes a threat to public safety and welfare. Why? Why do I say that? It's because it's really associated with gang activity, and really is often related to other types of crime, other type of disorders. And the crimes that are really associated with it, of course, is shoplifting, because where are they going to get their stuff to go and do the graffiti? They get it at the stores, right? They get those markers, they get the paint. But the thing is graffiti commonly conveys threats, identify turf boundaries, as we all know. And these can trigger violent responses, right, from violent gangs in our communities. We've seen it throughout the years. I mean, somebody goes and tags one community, here we go again. Before you know it, something is happening. So it's really attracting a lot more crime than what we think. And not only that, it's also an expensive burden to the community. Why do I say that? Because it lowers property values, generates additional repair costs that the business owners were not, contemplating in their budgets. and it also affects the quality of life of those who live in the immediate area. In essence, graffiti hurts businesses, property, values. It drives business away. It sends a message of lawlessness and lack of public safety. And it really causes stagnant communities and businesses. I always like to use this example. If you ever go out of county or you go into a community, you see graffiti. And I always tell people this. If you stop at a gas station and you see some graffiti there, are you going to let your kid go in and buy a Snicker bar? Probably not. Most likely you're not even going to want to stop at that in that community. So that's why I think this is important that we address this problem. Now, we have recognized the far-reaching negative effects that graffiti has on our community, and we have a graffiti abatement program. And it has been very successful throughout the years. The only problem is limited to one part-time employee. Although this individual is super motivated, really helps out, he's relentless. You know, whenever we need him, he's there. He cleans up these hot spots as soon as he can. But then again, he is limited by the amount of hours that he can work. And I want to share with you some of the graffiti abatement program statistics. Why? Because these clearly demonstrate the need for a full-time position. Just so you know, as of this calendar year, we have cleaned or removed graffiti from 270 locations. And this, again, keep in mind, this is a part-time employee. And it really should be noted that graffiti removal really takes a lot of work. As you can see in some of these photographs, it's just, a lot of them are pretty big. You know, we found that some of these sites range from 2 by 2 feet to 15 by 4 feet, and the average one being 10 by 4. So it's a big area a lot of times that we're painting. And just so you know, calendar year 2020, we painted and color matched 444 locations.
And Chief, if I could add, I mean, there's certain areas where it's almost the entire alleyway.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just covered like that. So it's just enormous space.
No, it is. And that's why, go to the next slide, Armando, please. And that's why we have reached to our community. So part of the graffiti abatement program where we wanted to evolve is to be in partnership with some of the nonprofits. We already did it. This I believe this came from Ivy Press on the last cleanup we did. So in other words, we started we went beyond, not just cleaning graffiti, but we're also cleaning up our alleys. And the good part is we got a lot of awesome citizens in our community that are willing to help. A lot of times we just need to ask them or really lead them to where we need the help, and they have demonstrated. We've done 2 graffiti cleanups. We cleaned up 18 locations, and the 18 locations that you're talking about, Mr. Nava, they were kind of like the whole alley. I mean, and it was a combo. It was trash, you know, mattresses, you name it, and graffiti everywhere. We filled one of those 20, well, the containers right there, the one we filled that one really rather quickly. And we're actually planning another one here pretty soon, and we're hoping to get 2 containers out. So again, the community is motivated. They want to make a difference in the city, but I think we need to support those efforts. Why? Because I believe it's important. It's important for our way of life. It's important for our kids, for everybody that lives in this community and that operates in this community. So reality is graffiti sends a message that nobody cares. And what does that do? It attracts other forms of crime, street delinquency, and it really decreases our sense of safety. That's what happens. You go in these areas, I mean, you just don't feel safe. And we know that the mere presence of graffiti is going to incite additional criminal activity, because it does. We've seen it. And it's definitely decreasing property values, and it's definitely not making our citizens feel safe. So it's because of these reasons that I would hope that you definitely would consider making a full-time position, you know, with our graffiti abatement program. So at this point, if anybody has any questions.
Before we go there, Chief, thank you for that very thorough presentation. Fiscal impact. That's important that we advertise what it would, the fiscal impact would be. It would be a budget adjustment of approximately $38,000 and change. That's not currently in the budget for a full-time position. And I have met multiple times with the Alex, Mr. Hendricks, that's the part-time person now, and discussed the budget with him, and we've we've concluded that this fiscal year, it would be only an increase in the, above the line, what I call the labor portion and benefits, because we think we can get through with the current amount of supplies we have and what's in the budget now. So that the only fiscal impact would be converting him from a part-time position to a full-time position, and he is on board with the program. And he will have an opportunity to provide a lot more services other than that, being here full-time, reaching out to business owners with, for example, I think Councilmember Namba mentioned that in the past that they would consult, the graffiti program would consult with business owners about paint themes and, that's not the correct term, but you get the gist of that. So that's all I have. Any
Mr.
questions?
Mayor, if I could add something. And I'm very supportive of the item. I've talked to our chief, Duran, in the past regarding this, and we've driven the city, we've seen it, we've seen the graffiti. I've talked to Alex before. In fact, I called Tyler just a few weeks back, and I was suggesting that this become full-time, and he just kind of coincidentally was already being considered. So it just, when we drive around our community, the problem is that I think oftentimes as community members, as city members, doesn't matter if you're on city council, just a resident, you become blind to what's out there. But I always tell people, if you want to see the entire community, go on the local transit bus. It's free to ride. You will ride around the entire community in an hour. Okay? And if you want to see Brawley and see all the spaces that you may not be familiar with, you're going to see them. And you're going to see how things have changed, right? You know, I know that COVID has kept people home and it's kept people out there and it's kept people away from jail, but you're seeing the impact on our community. So, you know, our graffiti abatement person has done a fantastic job. He matches colors very, very well, but he's also very limited in the fact that he's not full-time. And I know there is a fiscal impact, but quite frankly, I do think that that will be offset just by the improvements of the aesthetics throughout the community. So I would just encourage everybody here to be in favor of this item. I'm also in favor of the next item, but that's a separate topic. But you know, that I'll leave it at that. But I definitely do think that there's a tremendous need for the services.
I agree with you, Chief, with everything you just said. You know, growing up, I don't know, I lost countless friends. It started over a graffiti war. My only question for you is, Tyler, what is the fiscal impact going forward? Can it remain the same? Is it going to fluctuate? What are we talking about?
For this fiscal year, it will be the 38,000 and change adjustment to the budget.
Adjustment?
Yeah.
And then
In
going
the future
forward?
year, it'd be
The 61,000?
60 plus through the any COLA increases, et cetera, and increases in health insurance for next year, which we don't know or if he takes it or not at this point, pension, those type of things. So it'll be an increase higher than 60,000 plus probably supplies and paints and all that. It'll be a bigger adjustment next year, but we'll have those figures to you.
Okay.
At that time.
The one other item I do want to point out is that we have a very talented individual who is a professional painter. It's not just somebody who just goes and rolls over, you know, walls. The color matching, all of that makes a big impact on the quality of the work that's being performed. So just keep that in mind as well. We have the ability to hire somebody full-time that has a tremendous amount of talent, and he can mix very well, and he's done a very good job. So, I'm advocating for the position just because I believe in it, but we also have a very talented, special person that we would be putting in this role.
Yeah, no, right next to my house, the wall right in front of the Little League fields, it was graffiti, and I was gonna go try to clean it up myself, but it was covered up the next day. I was like, yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah. I was glad to see that.
I mean, I send pictures all the time. You know what I mean?
That wasn't because I live there, was it?
No, he's actually very effective. We try to do that as best we can in any area that we see. Either the officers will spot it, Alex will spot it.
I spot it, take pictures,
somebody
and I
will
send them
spot
in,
it,
yeah.
and we try to address that immediately. Or to
And
the best of our
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and to Council Members Nava's point, it's also has to do with the person that's there, because if he were to move on to another full-time position, I would have a hard time trying to find somebody that has that skill
Right.
set.
Yeah.
And, but for Council Member Castro, just for full disclosure, this would be an adjustment against the general fund reserves. Just it'll reduce the amount of reserves at the end of the year by that amount.
Just my question is, if this motion would be a two-item motion, one to approve the program and one to fund the position, or just one?
You're approving the full-time position is what, to add that cost to the budget. The program already exists, but just at a smaller scale.
Sam?
Just for historical purposes, we've had this discussion before, and we've consistently denoted a need for the graffiti abatement. However, as we move through budget, we've also noted the fact that it does cost an additional amount of money, and we have to come up with that money from some source of revenue. This would come out of the reserves. I have no problem with that. However, I think for the future, depending upon utility tax outcome and other things, we might have to take another look at this very quickly in the preceding year, but I'm in favor of it this year because I think we do need it. We've always needed it, and it's been a good program for us, and we've actually, I think, been better at it than a lot of our communities locally in the valley. However, I do want us to be fully aware that historically we've tackled with this. We eliminated it completely, I think, at one time, then we added it back in to a half-time position. It was never a full-time benefit position, I don't think, but we had more hours devoted to it. Now then, we're doing that again, and I'm in favor of that. I just think we have to continue to look, though, at budget items, and that's a critical issue for us.
It's a good point. I think, honestly, though, that's our mistake, is that we've made those cuts, and quite honestly, when you see the impact to the community, that's where people are critical, and they're looking around at the community, and they're saying things go really to waste.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you make an argument for a utility tax when, you're
Correct.
seeing the community degraded?
Correct.
You see? And so that, I quite honestly, I just think it makes it an even stronger point for the community to support the city in that regard.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just my
we talk
point.
about city pride, right? And if we as leaders let it become a dump, and, we already have,
Yeah.
and we have enough issues in this town, I think that's a good way to move forward to clean it up, and, it's a positive change for the community. And sometimes, money, obviously, I'm very concerned about our budget, and how we spend our money, and especially the costs associated with that after, right? But I think that this is very important, just going forward, how we clean up our town, how we present our town to the community, and those who are have interest in investing in our community. If it's clean, it'll bring others, and I think that's a good move. I mean, if there's nothing else, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 5D.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? The item carries. Thank you, Chief, for those visceral
Thank you,
images.
Chief.
For bringing this to
And I
our
don't feel
attention.
that way, by the way, about the center picture, so.
I don't either.
Item 5E, discussion and potential action to approve and fund a second police commander position through general fund reserves. This is also presented by our police chief. Backup is on pages 84 through 89.
Well, as you know, we've been, I guess I could say we've been running without a second commander position because it's been, in a way, unfunded or frozen in the last couple of years. And today we're here to take a look at why we need this position. And I hope that I can really show or demonstrate why we need that second command position. As you know, modern-day policing is totally different from the past. It has really changed in the last 20 years. I've been in law enforcement for over 20 years, and I've seen the change. Before, it was simple. Now it's very complex. It's multifaceted. There's never-ending changes in case law, legal mandates, operational techniques, training requirement, funding sources, administrative processes, new technologies. I mean, it's just constantly changing. And all these, they really demand a range of experience and expertise that is specific to these items. And again, these are so many things that happen within a police department that a lot of times we don't think about. We see the cruiser going by our street and we just think it's that simple. It's just getting the car and going out there. It is not. And the problem is that failing to comply with some of these laws, case laws, policy, rules, regulation, or anything that we're expected to abide by or do really puts us in a bad spot sometimes. It creates civil liability. Unfortunately, in the years of law enforcement experience that I have seen many instances in which failing to comply with some things, the city, the county, or whoever that law enforcement agency, may be, ends up in a bad spot, civil liability, and I don't think we ever want to be there. So I believe that in order to ensure compliance, we definitely need a second commander position. Why? Because we need that proper oversight in this complex environment. It's very complex. I know that this position will complete our management or our police management team, and it's going to ensure that we really provide the quality police services that our community deserves. As you know, we are a full-service agency. We provide patrol investigations, dispatch, records, evidence management. I mean, we are a full police service agency. And I believe that the second commander position is going to give us that ability to inspect quality and performance of all the services that we provide, because we can provide two types of services: good services or the best services that we can give. And I think our community deserves the best, and this is how we ensure that we provide the services. And as you know, the Brawley Police Department structure, it was really developed in accordance to industry standards and proven command and control designs for a full service police department. And I would like to refer you to the job description. You've probably seen this before. This is a police commander job description, and I included this in our staff report here because you can see how complex it is, and it's not that simple, and why the design of our police department calls for two commanders is clearly defined there. So I don't think there's any question that we do require that, given the type of environment we work in. And as you know, the diversity of assignments and required expertise, it really makes it very hard for one commander to provide that leadership, that accountability and follow-up for a 24/7 policing operation. In the past, we have been doing that. At one point we have one chief and one commander, but it's really not enough, not in the environment that I'm describing. So we definitely need to take a second look at this and really think about what is needed for our community. I believe that continuing to operate with one police commander is just really, based on my experience, is going to lead to administrative and operational problems within several areas of our department. And this is why we need the second commander. Why? Because I believe this is going to ensure that we get a well-organized, transparent overall. We need that competent, proficient police department that everybody wants. That's what the city of Brawley deserves. And this unbudgeted and unfunded commander position, I believe, is definitely going to reduce our police department's oversight inability, because we're not able to provide that oversight that our police department needs. And as you know, we're trying to change things in the police department. We're currently establishing new programs, operational techniques. We're implementing new technology. And what is this going to do? It's just going to create more work. It's going to create more work that needs more oversight in order to operate properly. So, but this is something that we need, because if we want to operate in 21st century police standards, we need to do this. We need to go forward. We can't stay stagnant. We can't stay where we've been. We need to go beyond that. But again, the future, it's how can I put it? It expects a lot from law enforcement. I think we've seen it. We all seen it. There's just so many things that we need to consider as we as we continue to operate in our city. So given the fact that our agency provides full services, I believe that it's imperative that we have one police manager assigned to each division of the department. Our department is divided in two, which is operational or operations and administration. So I don't think, based on the information that we have here, I don't think there's a question that the complexity and assignments within the divisions require direct expertise and attention. Why do I say attention? Why? Because critical decisions should be addressed in an expedient manner, and sometimes we just can't. If we don't have that second commander, it's harder to operate the way we should. So I believe that continuing to operate with one police commander is just going against that design or whatever command and control outline that we have currently established within the department. So I am hoping that today you will consider funding the second commander position. And again, this is going to have a fiscal impact. We are estimating that it's going to be $126,600. that's pretty much the estimate. And again, this would be needed from the general fund reserves. So at this point, if anybody has any questions.
I do.
I don't have questions, just maybe a statement that I'd like to express if somebody else doesn't.
Sam's got a question.
I just had a question on the 126,900, was it? Something like 600? Okay. On that, is that for the full year or is that for the rest of this year?
That is for the new position on a whole fiscal year. It's
A
not
whole
for
fiscal-
this year.
Okay.
They would be prorated depending on when that was on.
It would be,
onboarded.
that's for the whole year and they would be
Yeah.
prorated, okay.
Is that correct, Carla? I want to make sure I'm saying yes.
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 Okay, all right. I just asking the question.
Are we eliminating another position, or are we just taking 126,000 from the budget? to create a
Before,
brand new-
before you today is no elimination of any position anywhere. It is the creation, excuse me, not a creation of a new position, but an unbudgeted position that has been there in the past.
We've had two commanders in the past. We reduced it to one, and we've had struggles during that entire time.
No, I trust
Yeah.
the chief's comment, 100%. I'm just curious, as we're looking again at the numbers. I mean, we have no money. So, and we're saying we're healthy at this point, but even going forward, I'm really concerned with the number, and again, I support you, Chief, 100%. That's the reason I asked, I mean.
Well, that is a concern of both the finance director and the city manager. Fiscally, we always are concerned when we are taking out of reserves.
Correct.
The commander position, I came on board in March of 2019 as finance director, and it was Brown, right? Commander Brown left 2 or 3 months after that, so that's how long he's been, well, not this chief, but the
I
chief's been
imagine.
without a position. You know, and everything that the chief said is 100% true as it affects to operations. Again, it's that, you know, little heartburn we have about dipping into reserves and what have you, but there's no argument here about the needs of the organization.
Just one other comment.
Question I have.
I think what we're looking at with the two positions that we're potentially going to fund is approximately 187,000 plus, which is going to probably wind up being $200,000 for the next full fiscal year. I know that we may have that in reserves, and I think that we do. I think, though, that we have, but with doing that, I think we have to find a way to create additional revenue, because I think otherwise we're going to be put in a bind. And when we reach that bind, then it falls to either us or someone else to have to cut back those things like we've done in the past. It's a historical kind of thing, and it kind of runs in cycles. But hopefully, we'll be able to fund this and then continue to fund this. I have no problem with funding it for this year and then seeing where we go from there in the following year. And then I think we can support that for that additional year, and then we may have to take another look at that after that. But certainly, I'm in favor.
I think there are a lot of needs there.
I
at the
see the
police
need.
department,
I mean,
but-
there's certainly
Yeah, no,
a need,
absolutely.
but no-
There's, I think we have comments from the public.
Yeah, is there any public comment on this item?
Looks like Marty has.
Marty? Sure, go ahead.
Good evening, Marty Coyne. We're doing the Latico Ranch project. Just to kind of let you know, I truly believe in law enforcement and getting the city cleaned up. We've had rejections from potential developers coming into town and had noted graffiti and activities in the city where they may not want to come and do business. One thing I want to remind you on is we're going at a very rapid pace. I plan to inform you this afternoon. We should be pulling building permits as well over 100, maybe into 150 over the next 12 months. And I need to remind you, if this will help your cause any, we will be paying some police impact fees. And then Latico Ranch, however you want to call it, there's also CFDs, which are really service fees to take care of items like this. So if we can get 100 houses built in the next 12 months, which I'm confident we are, we've got 46 under construction right now, I can bring you in about $160,000 over the next 12 months to help you cover these kind of things and promote the city.
Thank you,
Marty.
Marty.
I think also, as was mentioned at the last item, the utility user tax passing or failing is going to affect also our ability to fund something like this going into the future. But it's obviously it's a need, and also I think our hope is that with the updating and modernizing of the UUT, that perhaps there will be more revenue that comes in from that. I don't think we're trying not to count our chickens before they hatch, but But that is the hope.
But
Any
I
other-
think
And that's
it's
not
also-
the, I'm sorry, go
But I
ahead.
think it's also really important for the public to understand too, that there are improvements within the community, and we're making a strong effort. We've built up our leadership team over the past 12 months. You know, we've added some very critical positions. We have some very talented people working within our community and our city. And so, you know, to include the police chief, our city manager, finance director, and many others here that have been added during that course of time. So I think it's really important that we emphasize the fact that we are making these improvements, and to include the position that we just decided on to make full-time. That's another improvement within our community. So it's just, it speaks to the community and saying that we're not sitting idle. And I know there's some disagreement on certain topics, but really, when we look at our overall community, we're making a lot of effort to change things for the better. And I think the more people know it and understand it, it's going to be a stronger position to help pass that utility user tax. Because otherwise, I mean, think about it. If people are feeling like they're getting the same level of service, why would they want to support anything different? Just my 2 cents. I mean, that's my viewpoint.
It's important to note that that's not our only source of revenue, and we, staff and I are anticipating and not hoping, we're anticipating that all our hard work, staff's all work's going to pay off with increased revenues on some of the other line items, and not just the utility tax.
Understood, but we're dependent on it.
Yes.
And that's the
but
truth.
That is
There's
true.
there's no
Yeah, that
hiding
is
that.
true. That is very true.
Yeah.
And with that, now that we have the second best finance director in the history of the city of Brawley. We are gonna, you're not gonna have to wait till the end of the year to see how we're doing. We're gonna provide, she's gonna provide quarterly reports to you, so you'll get a feeling, and it won't be like all of a sudden, boom, here's where we're at. So I think that's a benefit moving forward, that I hope it's a benefit to the council, that you'll see how the budget is performing, and the public on a quarterly basis.
You know, I trust with the chief, his comments and his concerns, and, I mean, we discussed modernizing the police department, body cams, the drone program, a whole bunch of stuff I think absolutely necessary, but, hey, you're the expert in the subject matter, so we'll rely on your guidance.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve and fund the second police commander position.
Second.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, wait, we got some other public comment?
Thank you. I would like to comment on the last item, but my point is, I don't disagree at all with what the police said, what you guys are saying. I totally agree with Tyler being fiscally responsible. However, on the abatement deal, it's been an issue for a very long time. And we're just we got to address the issue. We got to hammer it, what's wrong. Then also the deterioration of our community, the downtown and stuff. You have abandoned buildings which attract stuff like that. How are we going to address that? Is there imposing a tax of, those facilities paying any tax at all when they're not in use? There's a tax base right there being looked at. Is there a fee you can imply to help cover some of this cost that you guys are talking about? That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to item 5F, discussion and potential action to approve amendment number 11 to Imperial County Humane Society Agreement for Animal Sheltering Services in the amount of $72,000 per year. This will be presented by our Public Works Director, Guillermo Cias. Backup is on pages 90 and 91.
Good evening, members of the council, mayor, city staff, Guillermo Cias, Public Works Director. This item is to continue providing services from the Humane Society that we have been getting those services since 2009. And with this item, we would like to extend the contract for additional 2 years in the amount of not to exceed $72,000 per year. We have been working with very good relationship with Humane Society, providing services for shelter animals, and very good coordination. We have a very active animal control officer, and Humane Society is able to provide the services that we need. Any questions that you might have?
I noticed there's not an increase on this, and so I think it's good that we continue this. I think we have a good program going on. I think we have a good dog whisperer that works for us here at the city. He does a great job, and he seems to keep the animal control issue in check.
And barn owl too, remember that barn owl?
Yeah, and the
Huge.
barn owls
Like
and
humongous.
possums.
Right.
He's good at catching
Rattlesnakes.
possums and rattlesnakes too. So I think we should fund this.
Don't forget the tortoise.
And,
right,
but I think this is primarily for dogs and cats that are taking over the Humane Society, and I think they've been doing a good job over there, and I think they need the money certainly, and we need the animal control. And so I think we don't want to go back to housing our own animal control pens or anything like that. So I think this is a good thing. If anybody else has any questions or comments, I'll make the motion. to fund
One
this.
thing to note that I don't know if probably city manager shared with you is that during the wildfires on the New River, due to that, or maybe due to that, a lot of
Rattlesnakes?
rattlesnakes were moving from the river bottom toward the Caracol arena, and he was doing rounds, and he was capturing a lot of rattlesnakes. I remember probably 18 to 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's every single day he was capturing. Very, very good job in
He does a
protecting
fine
the
job.
citizens.
Okay.
So before you is the agreement of the extension of the agreement with the Humane Society. It is in this year's budget for this anticipated amount, so there would be no increase fiscally speaking. What you're doing is extending it another year into the next fiscal year at the same price.
Yes. I noticed.
So it locks it in.
On the backup, I read that. That's for my reason for my motion, so. I moved.
Was there a second to that? I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, item carries. Also, presented by Guillermo Cias is item 5G, discussion and potential action to award contract and authorize agreement with LC Engineering Consultants Incorporated for professional engineering services to design Legion Street project from Highway 86 to Western Avenue in the amount not to exceed $77,632.50. Guillermo.
Yes, this item is related to the grant application for congestion mitigation and air quality that the city was able to submit in 2019. And we were awarded in last year, in March last year, with the money to do the design and also the construction of Legion Street from Highway 86 to Western Avenue. And we advertised this design, and we received one proposal from LC Engineering in the amount of $77,000. The grant is for $200,000, and we received this proposal from them. They are very well qualified. We did the interviews. We scored the proposal, and so we are before you to get this approved to move forward with the design, and later on I will come back for the construction. Any questions that you have? The section will be for the north half between the frontage road east of Highway 86 to Western Avenue. This type of grant is similar to the one on Wildcat, where we are actually tomorrow we're going to be paving that street, but in that case will be the south half. In this case will be the north half, including storm drain and everything that will be connected most likely to Walmart retention basin. Yes. But it will be studied the whole area. Also will include the design of sewer pipeline from the same section with the intention to connect it to lift station number 3 that is in Larigo Ranch that will provide future needs to the south side of Legion development.
Yes. And who's responsible for paving the south half of that?
We will pursue another grant to be able to complete that section. But right now, we just were able to get enough money to do the north half because it's a very wide street.
Okay.
So it's a
So
significant.
it will be done separately. It'll be.
Right, yeah,
the
it
other
will
half.
be another phase with another time. We will look for those type of funds for air quality funds related to be able to complete the street.
Is there a reason that we have to build it that wide?
It is a significant arterial that will be connecting to Walmart area and all the other developments that are not there yet, but in the plan it is that wide or that width.
I'm just curious if we can keep it to that width. I mean, we're adding more expenses going forward.
Right.
We have to maintain that street.
Right. Unfortunately, when it gets into the Larigo Ranch, there's no development right now on the south, which is agricultural field, and on the north side will be residential. And there's no connection on to Dagwood because the railroad is, crossing there. So, but we might, analyze for another type of crossing or other alternatives, certainly, once we get there, once Larigo is developed, so we can analyze for another
And here's my
alternative.
concern, just so that you understand my thought process, is that one, we have to come up with the funds to build it, but no one's considering going forward, we have to maintain it. So, big wide roads, do we always need them? I don't think so.
Right, yes, exactly. But it's also on the general plan is included the south side as a development and potential connection to another project that is in current negotiation, very big area to be developed on the south. So that will be probably a connection to Western Avenue and Legion Street.
Yes, sir. I want that to be considered going forward, is
Yes.
not just how we're gonna build it, but how we're gonna pay for it going forward.
Right.
I don't wanna see my kids having to pay for this, bonds and
Right.
interest on bonds.
No,
30 years.
it is covered by the grant, of course, that the city will need to maintain, but like any other street in the city, it's not that we are getting into any credit or any loan or anything. It's money that is from the grant. The city will participate with 11%, 11.47% of the cost, which is minimum.
Thank you, sir.
We do expect commercial development to offset some future costs there with road maintenance. And sometimes in the commercial areas, it's better to have wider rather than narrower, just because of the volume, I think, of traffic you're going to see in that area. It is difficult to maintain, and we don't even maintain the highway there because that belongs to Caltrans. So I think it's important that they be fairly wide because I anticipate a lot of additional traffic there in the next 10 years. I may not see it, but I think
Yeah,
the
you just gotta
people
go a
in
little
Brawley are
slower,
gonna
that's
see
it.
it. Yeah, that's
30
true.
seconds.
Yeah, but that doesn't always happen coming off the highway there, though. And so I encourage, the development in that road to go through to Western. I think that's a positive for that area.
Right. Another potential alternative is that if there's a development coming from the south, so they will be able to, or could be a condition to complete the street.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been explained and discussed. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
Make a motion to approve.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? The item carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. Item 5H, discussion and potential action to approve budget adjustments and authorize LC Engineering Consultants to provide professional engineering design, construction management, and inspection services for the Lion Center Building re-roofing project at a cost not to exceed $105,300, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement presented by Rachel Fonseca, our Parks and Recreation Manager, and Guillermo Cias, our Public Works Director. Backup is on pages 104 through 107.
Good evening, members of the council. Rachel Fonseca, Parks and Recreation Manager. The current Lion Center roof is more than 25 years old and severely leaks. The roof as a whole has issues, but the lower levels of the roof, which sit at the east and west side of the building, have essentially no slope, and the lack of slope allows rainwater to pond and seep into the building, causing great damage. As a result, staff requested proposals for professional engineering services for the Lion Center roof project, and only one engineer responded with a proposal. LC Engineering's proposal for services is $105,300. The proposal includes design, construction management, and inspection services. In 2020, the city received a $300,000 donation to replace the roof, and the $105,300 will be derived from that donation, leaving $194,700 available for repairs. Staff has also identified CDBG program income that will further support the cost of the project. A CDBG program income waiver application will need to be submitted to the state to access the funds. The design engineering is a required component in the application. Approval of the budget adjustment and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement will allow LC Engineering to move forward with the design and for staff to obtain the documents necessary to prepare the waiver application to access the CDBG funds.
Okay. Cool. Any questions?
Nope. Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the item as presented.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? That was okay.
I was choking a little.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wonder what you.
This mask is killing me already.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what it feels like.
So thank you, Rachel.
Super restrained.
Drinking mine off.
Can we just take a minute?
Just
Like,
drink.
Yeah.
Just drink.
Take a drink.
Sorry, I thought I was stealing Councilmember Wharton's water, not yours.
I drank mine, I'm drinking Councilmember, and now it's.
Okay.
And it was almost like, I just drank a little bit.
Okay.
You did?
No.
That's cool. We've shared a beer before, it's not the first time.
All right, item 5I, discussion and potential action to approve the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Brawley's request to close Main Street between North and South Plaza and to sell alcohol during cattle call festivities.
Yeah, separate those two.
This is presented by Rachel Fonseca as well, and I had requested to split those into two items, two votes. Backup is on page 108.
So is it I and I1?
I and I.
I2? Is that what it is? Is that what that is?
I1 and
I2.
I2.
I1 and I2.
IA and IB? Or
That's
I1
it.
and I2?
I1
Oh,
and
these smart people figure that out.
I2. All right. I.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Almost.
Okay.
Ready? The Chamber of Commerce for Greater Brawley received permission from the Imperial County Public Health Department to hold their annual cattle call event November 6th through November 13th. The Chamber is requesting permission for the following: to close Main Street between North and South Plaza for the chili cook-off, mariachi night, and cattle call parade, and to sell alcohol during the events. The fiscal impact is a waiver of the fees associated with the event. And I have Ramon Urias from the Chamber of Commerce here for any questions.
And just for clarification, I don't believe you were here. We did break that up into two separate items. So it's, the decision first would be to close Main Street between North and South Plaza, and the alcohol portion will be presented separately. So if there's no comments, I'd make a motion to approve the item with respect to closing Main Street between North and South Plaza and the associated items with that portion.
I'll second that motion for item 1.
Item
I1.
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 Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, that half of the item carries.
And on the second item, I'll make the motion to approve the selling of alcohol during the cattle call festivities.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Nay. Item carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Item 5J, discussion and potential action to adopt resolution number 2021- Resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, in support of the Imperial Valley Housing Coalition and Pacific Southwest Community Development for a permanent local housing allocation grant. This will be presented by our Development Services Director, Gordon Gast. Backup is on pages 109 through 113.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, Gordon Gast, Development Services Director. This is a resolution that it's merely authorizing the developer, the partnership developer, to apply for grants for infrastructure. This is similar to the IIG grants that we've done with Ocotillo Springs, Malin Park Apartments. This is just a different source. This is the permanent local housing allocation. This doesn't obligate the city for any money. It would still have to be approved by the state, and then we'd see what happens, and we would be involved as kind of a go-between in managing the money and where it flows and what infrastructure actually gets improved. Like I said, it's very similar to the infill infrastructure grants that we've done before. If you have any questions, I'm here, and I believe
We also have a consultant that can answer questions specifically on if there's concerns on the grant or what it all entails. Chris Westlake is also here via Zoom. And I don't see the developer, but Chris is fully aware of the project.
Okay.
There's no questions, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I was just reviewing the item. Does any council member have any questions?
No, I read the backup.
I don't have
Does this obligate us to any type of housing element?
Well, our new housing element will be coming to you very soon. We are required, this is a project that wouldn't probably come to fruition for another 2 or 3 years, once this, where it actually gets constructed and occupied. But yeah, we have various income levels that we have to achieve during our next housing element. I believe the draft's been online for a while. I believe you know, there's a link there. Lots of good statistics in there if you're looking for that. I believe we sent out that information to you guys before if you want to look at it. But it is part of the, future development of different income levels, different types of housing, mixed housing income levels that we have to achieve as part of our housing element.
I think I'd be really comfortable to see that study with all the tax revenue and property taxes that are being paid before we defer any of this.
On this, sorry, continue.
And this is, if we defer this now, it could be deferred for 55 years. How does this, please explain that part to me. I'm a bit confused.
I think that's a separate,
That's the next item.
Oh.
Yes,
We're on
council
the-
member, maybe for the council as a whole and the public, we are not committing any public funds for this project.
No.
We are more of an administrator for the grant if it were to be successful to administer to the development and to, I think I can answer the mayor's question. The short answer is yes. It is a certain type of housing, affordable housing, which will be coming before you in front of, with the final adoption of the housing element. Did I say that correctly, the element?
Yes.
And it's rough figures, different levels. There's, I believe 4 to 5 levels of affordable housing, and it's about a total units of about 1,500 or so that through the state requirements that the city needs to try to accommodate. I think hopefully that answers your question, Mayor.
And it's an 8-year cycle. Our last housing element was 2013. At that time, those numbers were really inflated. The state kind of, and SCAG kind of overestimated everybody's in our whole region, not just Brawley. Nobody's going to achieve their housing levels for this last one. We're probably around the 50% mark there. So what happened is I provided a lot of comments during the SCAG part, and the new legislation that the state did, how they allocate these numbers, And, this is just a different area. We're not dense like the LA area and the Orange County or anything like that. So we got our allocation down to about 1,500 now for the next 8 years, starting with our new housing element.
And maybe I can take this opportunity to comment on Councilmember Castro's question about the study. I think you're referring to our Urban 3 economic analysis.
Yep.
And for just a brief, quick update on that, I guess I would describe it as we've had a little, let's call it a hiccup with trying to get the information out of the county. We have since put a scary face in front of them, scared them, they got rid of the hiccups. We have made.
Was the face? I can't see because of the mask.
That's scary.
Oh,
That's not
But,
I can see why.
so now we are again moving, we were stalled there, we've engaged the county is understanding exactly what we're looking for. That was one of the last hurdles that Urban 3 was having to provide that type of information, and I anticipate that the study, the economic analysis sooner rather than later now, that we've been able to communicate properly with the county.
Thank you for that, and I apologize for jumping the gun. I was already
No.
ahead of my, but this does go back. This is a question that I made to you in the past, right, when I called you. And it's just very concerning just to see where we're at with the mandates, the percentages,
Right.
and then how we're financing all the impact fees around those developments. I think it's important for us to know that and have a clear understanding.
Right. Well, most of these type of projects are infill projects, so they're using a lot of existing infrastructure. Again, some of these projects don't pay property tax. Thing is, there's not going to be a market for market rate apartments for here, so it's just going to sit vacant and not make any tax. At least now you have people living there that are going to be paying sales tax and live in the city and hopefully purchase things in the city, pay utility tax, things like, yeah, right. So it's either, no growth or growth with what our demographics allow, what income levels that, it's just the way it is, here. We have, a big part of the housing study, if you look at the appendix, there's a lot of tables, a lot of statistics that show broken down by, age, race, ethnicity, income levels, everything. And that's how, these numbers are determined by what the future demand is going to be and what's realistic on who are the people who are going to be living here. You're not going to get people from Beverly Hills coming down here buying big houses.
Right, I agree with you, Gordon. I'm sorry to cut you off. I agree with you. I grew up in public housing, and I don't deny that, and I'll never, I agree with the need. My question is simply, obviously, somebody's making profit off of this. Right? Somebody's going to make money off of it, and it's typically the developer. I'm okay with that.
Right. Well, most of these, I think, are nonprofits, so, what they're doing, they make enough money to stay operational.
Somebody's going to make money. Somebody's got to make money, or no, they wouldn't be building this. Somebody's making money. My concern is who's stuck with the bill afterwards.
Right.
That's all. That's all, and we just got to answer that, I think, going forward.
No, I'm against anything that dips into our funds or general fund or anything like that.
But even not just in the original phase of it, the construction phase, that development phase, going forward, 30, 40, how long are those units going to be there? That's my only concern. But again, I am not against public housing. I grew up in public housing.
Sure.
So I'm all for it. I'm just saying, somebody's making money.
And this isn't public housing. It is housing that is, there are offsets for these developments, and we have had developments on C Street, EC Street, several now. And so it's a very significant improvement to what was sitting there. And as as Gordon has stated, much of that area couldn't support market rate apartments. And so the quality of the apartment complexes wouldn't be.
And the Maryland Street apartments also, which were built, just south of Witter. That added, 160 units, if you're saying 3 people per household plus, and that's, part of the marketing that the new grocery store that's going to come in took into consideration.
Yeah.
As far as that, it brings in commercial things too.
Right.
These people got to go shopping somewhere. They don't want to drive all the way to El Centro. Hopefully, we don't want them to go to El Centro.
Hopefully. I do think we need to look to the future, though. There's a lot of discussion of industry that's coming, whether it's through lithium or geothermal activity or whatever the case may be, Brawley is the closest larger town
Yeah.
to much of that activity. And with the bypass and with the airport and with rail, you know, we can be poised to take advantage, full advantage of the people that will come to live here to work in those
Right,
industries.
and I mean, you know, hopefully there will be some high-paying jobs, but, you know, somebody's still got to,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
do the other work, you know,
Yeah.
so it's a mix of, you know, incomes that you're going to have still.
And there is new development that is also being constructed as well. I mean, single-family homes, as Mr. Coyne
Right.
has stated as well. So there's a mix. I mean, that's
This is
just our community.
single-family
That's where we
homes,
live.
too, to a
Sure.
certain extent, I think. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on this item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve the item.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Nay?
For the record, that was a nay from the mayor?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Item 5K, discussion and potential action for direction on the proposal from Chelsea Investment Corporation to partially defer development impact, water and wastewater capacity fees for Brawley Adams Phase 3. This will be presented by our city manager, Tyler Salcido. Backup is on pages 114 through 119.
I will make some introductions to the principals here for Chelsea. Mr. Dave Davis, got it right, and Heidi Mather, yeah, good, okay. They'll present, they have a little presentation regarding their request, and if there's anything to add afterwards, I will contribute.
Yeah, so I'm Dave Davis. I've met with some of you and others I'm looking forward to meeting with. And I just basically wanted to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to present this case for this third proposal. This is my third project in Brawley, so I know Chelsea's been around for quite a few more years than that. But so this is our third, and we're looking forward to our fourth project come, you know, next year. But I'm going to let Heidi come up and explain all the details. Well, she's already up.
Hi, good evening. Heidi Mather with Chelsea Investment Corporation. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Chelsea is not new. Oh, I guess I need to do this, right? Chelsea is not new to the city of Brawley, just as David mentioned. We have 6 communities here in Brawley and another one under construction right now. Just wanted to just quickly kind of remind you of who we are. We have developed over 120 affordable apartment communities throughout California, New Mexico, and Arizona. And we're 100% affordable in terms of our populations that we serve, and we have senior developments, farm workers, special needs, homeless, not in this situation, and inclusionary. So we kind of run the gamut of all different affordable housing developments out there. One item that I did want to point out, given the conversation earlier today about graffiti and graffiti abatement and kind of trash and just overall, we are a long-term owner and we an operator of our properties. We do have our own asset management company that's affiliated with us. We do have an affiliate construction company, and so having the layered approach, if you will, to not only development, construction, and ownership, it ensures compliance as well as long-term maintenance of our properties. As I mentioned, we're not new to Brawley. We opened our first community here back in 1993. We have a housing stock of about 425 rental homes here in the city of Brawley. We have another 60 units that are under construction right now. Total investment in the city of Brawley over the years totals about $71 million at the time of construction. As I mentioned, we've got here in Brawley, we have family, senior, farm worker, and DD, which is units that support developmentally disabled clients. What we are asking for today is a deferral of our development impact fees that is in the form of a loan. So it's a 55-year loan. Repayment is based on share of residual cash flow. And what this does, the reason that we are here today, is because, as you know, all these different applications are very competitive, as you just heard, and in order to make the financing stack, the capital stack work for this project, we're looking at an MHP application, which is due later this month, and then we would then be awarded that in December. And then March of next year, we would apply for our 9% TCAC application. And so that is what gets us our tax credits. And so in order to have the competitive advantage for the tax credit applications, this type of fee deferral helps us in all of our scoring. I think Mr. Salcido will give his report, but as you read, it's not 100% fee deferral, it's a partial fee deferral that we think it still gives us that competitive advantage that we need. Here's a project location. We actually have a kind of master plan, if you will, of 4 projects that were approved and received entitlements a few years ago. The project in the upper left, Serenita, unfortunately this is an old aerial, but Serenita, that project has been constructed. It is fully leased up at this point. The project called Palomino directly to the right, that's the project that's under construction right now. And then the subject that we're talking about tonight is called Casa Calibri, and that's the subject in the lower right. And so that's the 60-unit project. And then future is that last parcel. That would be reserved for future development. So here's our site plan that we did have approved during the entitlement process when all 4 of the projects were approved concurrently. Immediately south of the sister properties, as I mentioned. So it's 60 units, multiple unit types, 1s, 2s, and 3s. Pretty much about 75% are 2 and 3 bedrooms, so this is considered a family development. And all of the units except for the 1 manager unit, so we will have an on-site manager living at this property. All of the units are restricted to incomes between 30 and 60% of AMI. Parking is at a very healthy ratio of 1.9 to 1. Typically, operationally, in family projects at these AMI levels, about 1.2 to 1 works operationally, but we think just given kind of where these households might be driving, that having the higher ratio works for us here. This development represents about a $23.6 million investment for the 60 units. These are all 2-story units, 2-story buildings, plus we have a community building that's 1-story. And I'll talk about amenities later. Predicated on the financing, both the MHP and the 9% TCAC, we're looking at start of construction in December of next year, and then finish construction December of 2023. So that's when the units would be coming online to be able to house residents. This is always an interesting slide. Obviously, every jurisdiction's a little bit different, but in terms of just so you could see what the rental rates are, and these are today's rates. When they open, the rates are going to be a little different, but this just gives you kind of an idea of what the rental rates are. So 1 bedrooms range from $350, to $675, 2 bedrooms $430 to $800, and then 3 bedrooms $490 up to $900. So you've got different household sizes. I mean, there's this whole calculus that goes on, but just in a nutshell.
Don't mean to interrupt, but the question is specific to what Brawley would be seeing, those rents here?
Yes, this is specific to Brawley and specific to this particular project because we are limiting the top of the AMI range to 60%. So we're 30 to 60%. In other affordable developments, you can see anywhere from 70 up to 80%, but we're limiting to 60% for this development. Also, the second bullet point, you can see the utility allowance. So what that does is, so the gross rent is actually higher than that, but then there's a utility allowance because the household is only allowed to pay a certain percent of their total income on rent plus utilities. So these numbers is the net of the utility allowance because it assumes that certain dollars are going to be spent directly to the utility companies. Wanted to just, talk to you about the level of the construction and the quality. We have unit amenities as well as community amenities. The unit amenities that I really wanted to highlight because they're relatively new rules is the accessible bathrooms and wheelchair barrier-free shower stalls. On this project, 15%, so 9 of the units will have that type of a shower capability. People that, special needs or, any population, it's just a nice kind of a nice amenity for people that need to have a wheelchair or a walker situation. And then 10% of the units, which would be 6, would have features to assist with communication impairments. So those are new, so I thought I would highlight those, because you've heard about other ones, I'm sure, in the past. And then in the community itself, we do have a computer lab, computer lounge. We've got our community room, tot lot. On this particular project, we have a half-court basketball court and barbecue areas with shades and benches. And we also have a secondary tot lot. That's a small tot lot. Service amenities, as part of the tax credit program, we provide services to our residents. And these are on-site services. They're typically conducted in the clubhouse, in that community room. They're free of charge to the residents. And so we are partnering with Pacific Southwest Community Development Corporation on this particular project. And so they provide a range of services, and you can read them up there: adult education, literacy classes, ESL, job counseling. So these are all free of service. And during the school year, they do offer after school computer and kind of homework help type of classes. And if you have any questions, Dave and I are here to answer them for you.
This program you mentioned, is it already funded? Is it optional? I'm sorry, I missed that part where the program that you mentioned that would provide program help for kids after school study.
So that is,
tutoring and whatnot.
so once the, how do I go back? That one, there we go. Oh, no, didn't work. Went too far. So these services, once the community is built, the cost for these services are included in our operating expense budget, and so PSCDC is the nonprofit service provider that provides these, but it is included in the operating budget for the property.
And I did, just a statement to the city manager, I did read the backup material where the fiscal impact is mentioned. When building permits are issued, the city would collect $9,834.68 per unit for a total of $354,000 plus dollars. Remaining 40% would be deferred, and so that's what they're asking for. It's not.
Oh,
it's just a deferral of a portion.
Okay, I have a slide that will hopefully sum it up, put pictures to the words. And for full disclosure, I didn't do this. This was done by our finance director, because that's why it looks so nice. And
She was not here. Would you state that? Or
She's only the second best to
well,
work
yeah,
here.
she's not here. I don't know. We'll have to address, see if that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that one there, Mondo. Thank you. Go to next page. Yeah. So here you go. So what Chelsea Chelsea Investment is requesting is that they would pay $354,000 of total impact fees, including the capacity fees of water and wastewater, which is 60% of what the current impact fees are for a market rate, what we're operating now on. That's the current level. They would pay 60% of that. What they're asking to be deferred is 40% of the maximum of the
rate.
studies, which would be, I think it's tier 5
Right.
and 3 on the impact fees, tier 5 on water, wastewater. If you look here, the 55-year loan, annual interest, paid up to 20% residual, those were based on the last.
And then the maximum figure.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Big difference.
The $764,000 there in the green on the bottom total is what we would be collecting off of over a 55-year period. The bullet points there were based on the last agreement. That's where I pulled these from, or Carla and I pulled from. This is different than the last project that was before council in August of 2019, in that at that time, 100% of the current fees were paid up front. And maybe Chelsea can address the reason between why it's 60% is considered now as opposed to 100% as it was in August of 2019 on the impact fees up front.
Yeah. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, the different applications, they're very competitive, and they've got different scoring systems, and then there's the tiebreaker. So pretty much all projects get maximum points, and so you're all looking at what is this tiebreaker to be able to, to be competitive and ultimately win and be awarded funds. So what we did is we said, okay, well, and I've got my little cheat sheets here about, so the last round of the 9% that has been awarded, the winning, the lowest winner, if you will, was 61-ish% in terms of the tiebreaker. Now, of course, I can't find my little cheat sheet. Oh, here it is. And so with this deferral amount, we're a little over 64% in terms of the tiebreaker. So we think that's a big enough spread between the winner last time and, and being competitive this time. And so going with 100% deferral, that number, of course, would be higher, but we don't think we need to achieve that. And so we wanted to, not ask for everything if we didn't need it, right? And if we think we can be competitive. So we have our MHP application that's due September 20th, and as part of the capital stack for that pro forma, so you submit your pro forma and your numbers, and as part of that capital stack, and for that one to also be more competitive, you need to show soft source funding, and so this would be considered a soft source. And so that's why we're here today requesting approval of this loan. So we can get the commitment today for our MHP.
What are the actual numbers, Tyler? Are these the actual numbers that we would be deferring?
Yes. That is the actual numbers based on our studies, the impact fees and the wastewater study. Yes. Those are the actual numbers that you're right in front of you, the 764,000 to defer.
And just to keep in mind, that's at the maximum
Yes.
level, which
Again.
we're not implementing. So
For
that
the-
would be,
yeah.
they're taking it to that extreme. Right.
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question is, we've got two projects that are in process over there. We've got one that we did some deferral to, or we did not do any deferral to?
And the one in August 19, we deferred a portion of it as well.
Was it
Similar
more
to
than- was
this,
it-
with the
was it similar
exception
to
of
this?
100% of the current fees were collected, and then the remaining balance.
The difference.
The difference based on the same thing at the highest rates is what was being deferred.
And then in one of the projects, we didn't defer anything, right?
That is correct.
I think in one of the projects, we didn't defer anything. So they've got three different projects going on. This is the
Yep.
third one.
Yep.
We'll expect the fourth one to come through also. Basically, they've kind of done what I had talked to them about and what I kind of had asked them to do, which was not to request 100% deferral. I don't think that as a city, we can handle that kind of deferral. So basically what I asked them to do was come back with a revised figure that we could look at and decide as a council, what we wanted to do. And so this is kind of basically what they've done. Now this is, based upon the penciling out and everything else. I guess my concern is, over the 55-year period, I'd rather receive that money sooner rather than later, but it doesn't appear that would be the case.
Yeah, we're all gonna be dead before this is paid back.
Well, that may well be, but.
I think you will. I think you will see that money sooner, because after between years 15 and 20, when we re-syndicate the project, that's when that'll get paid, plus the interest. So we just had a similar type thing in year 18 in Calexico. I think it was about a $600,000 loan, fee deferral, and we just paid them $1.2 million.
Okay.
In year 18.
And I believe in the Phase 2 agreement, while it was a 55-year, something stated about within 30 years, we need to have collected the vast majority of something along that line in the language. Is that right, in that agreement in Phase 2?
I don't recall that.
Okay.
Yeah, Phase
That's
2
what I read into it when I was reading up on the agreement.
Phase 2, because
Yeah.
we had IIG and other funding
Yeah.
sources, we had the tiebreaker we needed to get
So,
it done.
and on the other phases, the Phase 2 in particular, we have not yet seen, the city of Brawley has not yet seen any of that money, and that's anticipated in the next year, I believe, in our, excuse me, phase one, sorry. What I say, phase two? Yeah, phase two's only a year in, sorry.
And how many
Yeah.
years is that already?
Pardon me?
That's only in the first year, you said?
No, we have not collected on the deferral yet to the city of Brawley. And with the conversations I've had with Chelsea, we anticipate that to be starting next year.
How many years into that? How many years is that
That's-
development up and
okay,
up
sorry.
and running?
That's the question.
But Serenita, that's phase one, and
Yeah.
phase two is under construction right
Yeah,
now.
no, but the question for you is, how long ago was phase one, the agreement?
Opened and occupied.
Yeah,
That was probably 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So in year three, we'll begin to see some of that deferred
Yes.
impact
Spring-
fee come into the
Spring of
city.
next year, yes.
Okay.
That'll be the first full fiscal year.
Councilman Castro, is this where you wanted to ask your question about the urban three, or did you get that?
Yes, I think, I know it's a time-sensitive issue. Where are we in urban three as far as timeline, sir? Is it sooner than later, or later than sooner? I think it's very important.
I am pushing for sometime in October.
Okay.
It won't be before then.
And I think I'm very concerned about where we are at this point. I mean, we were arguing with our police chief about, a very important position and whether we could fund that or not. Offsetting it, putting off these impact fees and basically issuing out a loan for 55 years. My kid will be retired. My son, a sophomore in high school, will be retired by then. I believe in the work. Somebody has to fund it. And that's what scares me.
And they are funding a portion of it. Keep that in mind. The difference, though, too, is that, keep this in mind, too. They're at the maximum level, right? They're opting for that. And so what they're saying is, make this a larger amount, we'll pay it over a course of time, right? It's to make them more competitive for their project. It's not like everything is not being collected. So there's still a major portion of that dollar. I think Gordon wants to share something.
In respect to phase two, the city has collected what we would normally charge a market rate subdivision. We've already collected that.
Phase one and two.
Phase one and two, thank you. And so the additional is something that just a little historical perspective is that council back at that time decided not to implement the maximum amount. So we have never charged anybody that other than these types of developments. Just for clarity, I'm not arguing anybody's point. I'm just want to make sure we're clear.
The water and sewer fees have increased since then.
Yes.
Just point of clarification, impact fees can't be used for salaries. Impact fees cannot be used for salaries.
Can you
It's capital.
talk into the mic?
Go ahead. Impact fees are only used for capital improvements. You cannot use them for salaries. So even if we got the money more now, you couldn't use it to pay something.
I understand. I'm just referring to the budget as a whole, general budget, and how we don't
If
have
we want
money.
to, I think if you look at the impact fees they would pay right now at the level the council approved, they're not really any less than what they're going to be paying. That much,
That's the number that I'm asking. That's
Yeah.
the number that I want.
Right, and in the future, if you're looking out for our kids, this is money that's going to come back to them one day and help our city out,
Thank you, Gordon.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's good spin. But I do want, because we're talking about a max amount, I don't understand. I want to see the actual amount. I understand it's for an application purpose and make you more competitive. I want to know the real number.
What's going to be less than that? Think about it. Let's put that
Yeah, if
screen
you
back
could
up.
put that slide back up, maybe.
I'm sorry, but that's
I
not good
can-
enough for me. I need an actual number.
No, I'm gonna give it to you.
Por eso te digo, I need them to do that.
I think I have one very close. I'm a rounder. I round up and down, but, so it won't be the exact number. But if you go back to that slide,
There you go.
so we're paying the 60%, that 354,000, right? So we're deferring 40%. So if you add 232 to that 354, so that's the total we would pay under the current rules. So City Manager Salcido, if you can correct me if I'm
586,
wrong,
something like
but
that?
my understanding is that we're deferring 232,000.
Right.
However, we're entering into a fee deferral loan of this 764,000. So it's a higher amount that we're deferring. So we're paying you more at the end of the day than what we would, than what we're deferring. Did I answer that?
40% of the current rates that we would collect on impact fees is being deferred. Hopefully, and again,
It makes sense now.
appreciate you to keep after until you understand. That's perfect.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. So, but I'm going to make sure that I'm answering and not
Yeah.
leaving, okay.
I apologize. Some stuff has to
No,
be
no,
explained, broken down, Mickey Mouse side of me.
So-
And I- I have-
He was coaching me in the car on the drive over.
I have to be comfortable, I have to be comfortable with what I vote on up
Yeah,
here.
I appreciate
I hate rubber stamping stuff. I think everybody knows that. And if I don't understand an item, then I would rather, table it. But this is a time-sensitive issue here. I get that. But again, if I don't understand it, if I'm not comfortable with it, I have two options: table it or vote against it. That's the reason I ask these questions. And I might sound like a fool up here, but I guarantee you, many people at home agree with the way I carry myself up here. So that's why I'm asking those questions.
So I hope I answered it.
And so
Yes, ma'am.
it's just, if this is approved tonight, this is not the actual agreement. That was going to be working through city staff and bringing back to you the actual agreement, but these are just the, what would be
points.
in it, but not the details. For example, 20%
This is
residual receipts, what is that defined as, those type of things, so.
This just allows you to apply.
Correct.
This allows them to apply. There's no guarantee they're going to receive this grant even, and until that happens, there would be no agreement really drawn up. These are just the essentials that we've discussed as would become a part of that agreement. However, if they don't receive the grant, then they've got to go back to square one and think about how they finance this in another way.
Correct.
Or through other grants or whatever, yeah. But you do believe by going this route, you would be more competitive?
Yes.
And being successful, right?
If we can get this project start construction by the end of next year with this fee deferral. Without it, we'll probably delay at least a year to figure out something else.
Understood.
We have a
Delays
couple,
the fourth phase as well.
we have a couple of public comments.
Sure.
Hi, Marty Coyne. I'm a little bit lost too, and I got a couple of questions. Probably
You're a money guy. You understand this.
I just briefly looked at the whole agenda online today, but I saw there was a lot, the spreadsheet here, does that include all the rates that they're paying, 2011 rates, 2014 rates on capacity fees, or is that over and above? So how much is the city really giving away if it's already been discounted 50%, or if you're carrying the 50% off rates at 764 and it really should be $2 million? Right, because I think their request is having you charge them sewer and water capacity fees at 2011 rates and a certain percentage at 2014.
Let me answer that in pieces. The current rates, when I'll just use you as an example, Latigo Ranch, are paying X amount of impact fees and water capacity fees. That X amount, what they're going to pay, if this is approved to the city, is 60% of that upfront. That 40% it will be deferred, but in addition to that 40%, they're also going to pay, if the council had adopted the full study, which has never been adopted, so the extra tiers, which I bet on, it's tier 3 on impact fees and tier 5 on water and wastewater, which we're not there with anybody. So that's, I hopefully answered that part of the question.
Yeah, I just saw that they were requesting to pay fees at 2011 rates, I thought, on the agenda. Maybe I'm really off.
11
base,
and
but-
14, depending on which study
2014.
we're talking about.
And I'm just curious how that equates into your final number.
There were two different studies. One, the 2011 study had to do with what aspect of development impact fees? Do you know?
The impact fees, and 14 was the final
and
water,
waste?
yeah.
Okay. So the difference is development impact fees were reassessed in 2011, water and wastewater in 2014. Those are the two different studies, so that the latest fee numbers that we have are two separate numbers, one for development impact fees in 2011, one for water, wastewater in 2014.
What you're talking about are based on market rates today.
This is what that study is what the study is what the fees are based on, and within that study, there's tiers, and past councils had decided not to fully implement the study's fees. And where we're currently at is where, at whatever, depending on the impact fees
Whatever
or
tier.
capacity fees, is the tier that has been approved by council that you as a market rate developer is paying, which is based on that, again, the 60% of that rate.
60%. The 40% is based upon increased rates. So
Yeah,
you're getting
and
more money,
40%, yeah.
but it's over a 55-year term. Pretty simple.
Nicole Rothfleisch. I would like to agree with Councilman Castro. It seems like this is a complicated situation, and I'm a little bit lost trying to follow it too. But one concern I have that I'm wondering if you should take into consideration is, do you do this for other developers? Would you consider doing this for other developers? Yes, it's a loan that's deferred later. You would, make it back. But if you did something like this for all the developers, could the city actually afford that? Are you giving them preferential treatment that sets a precedent to others wanting to come and ask for these kinds of things? Just some questions to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it should be noted that Chelsea is I think, Heidi, you mentioned you have a management firm that you use, or a partner that you use that manages these units nonprofit, correct? So that means that they won't be paying property taxes. And so what you hope to earn is sales tax dollars from the residents there. I don't even know how that affects utility user tax, if their utilities are prorated in any way, and if that affects the utility user tax amount that we receive.
We, in the ordinance, I believe that we're addressing, we will be still collecting the full amount of the utility tax rates, and the UUT tax.
Okay.
If I could just respond to that, since you mentioned that they would not be paying property taxes, just with the state the city's in, that just doesn't seem fair either, that other people carry the, brunt of our city burdens and costs, and to allow more housing developments to come in that is going to strain our city services for, maintenance and everything else, streets and all that, to have another development that does not pay their share of property taxes also does not seem fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a response to that?
You want to respond?
So generally, these types of deferred development fee loans is generally accepted practice. I know City of Brawley has done it for us, likely for others. I don't know the answer to that. But it is certainly a mechanism that is used for affordable housing. So one thing to remember is the rents, when you look at the rents that are being paid, they're substantially below market rate rent. And so we're able to house households that need some assistance in terms of being able to house their family. So it's different in terms of, it's not a market rate developer coming in here and asking for any kind of loan who can raise their rents every year based on market. It's not what we can do. So it is different than a typical market rate housing developer coming in here and asking for something. I come from the market rate world, and this is all new to me. On the market rate side, you don't do this. So it's not part of your capital stack. It's not part of your funding, your financing. So I don't know if that answers.
The other question is, as far as the property tax goes, that's not the city's rule. That's a rule that's placed upon us by whatever the governmental authority is, that either at the state or federal level, that we don't charge property taxes for these types of developments, the nonprofit and low-income type housing. No one that develops that type of housing that's a nonprofit pays any property tax. That's not a city ordinance or anything like that. That's a state and federal rule. And so we're kind of bound by that if we have housing developments that occur in this fashion. So it's not something that we can do anything about other than say maybe no to the housing, but then the state's requiring that we have so much low-income housing on our inventory. And so what happens is we get punished in another way if we don't develop low-income housing. So we're kind of caught in a trap.
Well, I think I don't know how we get punished. As Gordon pointed out, the last set of requirements for the last 8 years was, what was it, like 5,500 units or something, like thousands of units anyway.
That's because they realized they overshot.
Sure.
The thing is, we didn't deny any
we didn't deny any of the low-income housing projects. If we would deny them, the state has sued several cities.
Sure.
And some of the members, and this has happened in New York too, where some of the planning commissioners, council members who voted against it ended up getting fines personally against them.
And we
It's a state law. I mean.
Understood.
And I agree with, I'm 100% on your side on these things. I prefer, no, I didn't get it. I prefer, local control. But this is an issue where you need to talk to your state senators, your assembly members, both of whom voted for all of these bills that require us to do this stuff.
Understood.
So you need to talk to them about that.
And we do work with nonprofit organizations, and these agreements have been in place with others as well. We also work with for-profit organizations. There's another request that's coming up right after this one, and working with a for-profit organization. So what we do try and do is accommodate development within the city. And I think if I would share with all of you, there are some nice improvements within these developments. They're nice additions to our community, and, it's otherwise it would sit vacant, right? It's not like our population is growing. It is, however, moving. Maybe they're moving from where their parents live to their own place and starting their own families and those sorts of things. So it's just our community. I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
It's just a reflection of where we're at.
And not because of us, but some of these other cities, especially like in Orange County or something, the state has put up some bills, and there's one going, right now that they're going to take over doing the entitlement for low-income housing, which means we have no say
No
at
control, yeah, no
all.
say.
That means they can put wherever they want, the density that they want. So I think we can kind of work with them. Like I said, this is something that needs to be spoken to on the upper level.
Yeah.
Understood.
It's nothing that we have
Thank you,
control
Gordon.
over. We can't make ordinances that go against state statute.
Sure. And I don't think that's even before us tonight. What is before us tonight is how attractive are we going to be, to this type of development, understanding that there's a sacrifice that we have to make as a city, both in making a loan like this and in the loss of property taxes when it's managed nonprofit. Are there any other questions or comments that need to be made before we take a vote on this?
Yeah, how long, the actual amount, not the 754,000, the 200 and some that you mentioned, how long will it take to pay back those impact fees?
That's part of the 55-year payment schedule.
Yeah, so on starting on the payment schedule, roughly how many years into this project would it take for us to recoup the actual amount?
When would the city potentially first see some financial?
Let me see if I can get that.
Okay. Yeah, because it's okay, the extra money, okay, good, I get it, good. We're getting some of that, but I want to see the actual amount. And
Like 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
18 years, you'll see it back.
Does the payback time change how competitive you are? Let's say the actual
The
amount.
55-year, why is that a number, 55 years? Where does that come from?
55 years, typically an affordable housing covenant on the property is usually a 55-year covenant requiring you to have these units be affordable for 55 years.
Right.
So that's typically why these loans are structured to be
Does it
55 years.
affect how competitive you are?
I'm sorry?
Does it affect how competitive you are?
In terms of if the
In terms of the
loan,
application?
so if the loan
Okay.
amount was, or the timing was less, is that what
Right.
you're asking?
Yeah, 55 years to me is unacceptable in any form. That's why I'm asking if there are different ways that we can structure this loan.
Well, I think for our other project, we've structured it a little bit different than the typical. So we can look at that as a template.
Yeah, well, the framework is 55 years
Oh,
on the
okay.
prior one. But again, I don't have the language in front of me, but there was language in there that it would be, that we would anticipate sorry, Gordon, see, you got to talk into the mic. The agreement does state 55 years, but within the agreement, there is language that would suggest that we were paying it off. And I believe, and I apologize for not having the exact language, but there is a requirement that 30 years max that they should have been paying, so.
Yeah, and my concern, to be honest, is the actual amount that the city's going to have to finance, and the payback time for that. So the rest I don't care about. But
Right,
the
yeah,
actual
so the
amount.
232,000,
Correct.
right?
That's
Yeah.
that's the 40% of the current rate.
Right.
Yes.
And I see what's going to come in the future. The actual amount up front and when it's going to be paid back to the city. I think it's something that really concerns me, and I would like to.
Is there an amount of years that you would like to see that paid back?
Yeah, I would like to see that paid back within that amount, that specific amount within at least no more than 5 years.
So that is not possible due to the other funding sources. So the city loan is subordinate to MHP, the MHP loan. And so, so different, when you go through the waterfall.
So other people get paid first?
Yes. And that's why it's considered a soft loan, and that's why it helps on the competitive scoring.
MHP is,
Multi-housing program,
There
it's
you-
the one that's due on September 20th. But I mean, yeah, so as Dave mentioned, when we resyndicate, so when you take out the limited partner that's in for the 15 years, the tax credit time period, so anywhere between year 16 and 20-ish, that's when you usually take out that partner. And as David mentioned, we did that, another project here, City of Calexico. And so we just repaid that in about year 18. And so whatever balance was on there, the balance gets 100% paid off. So, but in terms of doing a 5-year, we are required to pay these other sources first before the cash flow drops down to the city.
And with respect to the loaned amount, is the interest rate that would be applied would be?
on the past, it was based on a federal rate. Again, these details are not worked out. If in concept, then before final approval, we would come back with you a specific agreement and ordinance.
Understood. So nothing would be finalized until council would make the final determination. This is just to get the process essentially beyond started, but at least so you could have something that you could apply with.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, so we need the commitment letter.
Commitment from the city based on these parameters.
Based on,
So we would be legally bound to this.
if we were to secure this funding.
If they were successful.
Right.
But that's kind of like the fight I had with you, Mr. Coyne, a couple of years ago on the planning commission about the grant from the IID. You remember that? It's one of the good fun. I mean, it's because we're bound to something based on, and I'm not comfortable voting on what is. And that was the same scenario back then. Luckily, everything was secured prior to us making that agreement and approving that. And I find myself in the same exact scenario today.
Well, we're not necessarily. I mean, this is still just an application. What we can assure ourselves, though, is that if they are successful, they will pay impact fees. Okay, so there is that amount. The remaining amount would be, paid over the course of time via a loan, and there is a smaller portion that, as you mentioned, the 234,000, or that has been mentioned, the 234,000, that will be collected over a period of time. So there is security in what we're doing. The 55-year term also secures the fact that over that course of time, the money will come back to the city. So there is way more security in this particular project than there would be with any sort of, and this would not be considered, quite frankly, for any for-profit, because they wouldn't have the ability to have the 55-year term. They wouldn't be, they wouldn't have those covenants in place, right? And so it's just different. I know it's hard to wrap your head around it sometimes, but this is just a different animal. That's why, for me, I'm much more comfortable. Obviously, we want to collect as much as we can, right? But we have to have some leeway in the form of having them have the ability to develop a lower income housing program where it's filling in an area that otherwise won't go developed. Nobody from the market rate is going to go in there and say, okay, we're going to put more apartments here where that's established.
Market rate's gonna come in and say, I want you to raise my fees
Right.
$500,000.
Right, yeah, right. Nobody's going to do that. So it's just a little bit of leeway in doing that. It gets them started. It gets us, a good portion of the fees collected, and they're still guaranteed to be collected. So I know it's a little bit challenging to say, like, okay, that's a lot of money, but we are collecting a good portion of that. It secures the fact that it's being developed, and it's making it to where it's an improvement in the community. So, that's the give and take that we have to make. And it's not a private company saying, hey, give us this, they may not be around in 10 years, that kind of thing.
Right.
They have guarantees when they're applying for this. And so they're also guaranteeing that they're providing this level of rate or rent stabilization for people for this course of time, right? So it's just a different approach that they're taking.
Mr. Davis, did I hear you say that if you don't get this competitive edge, that it will extend the time period for building these units out a year?
At least a year, yeah, until we do get funded.
Okay.
Because we would not apply for TCAC in April.
Right. It would be some other type of,
We have to, wait till something else comes up. And that's all changing as it becomes more and more competitive. Next year, they're doing these, what do they call this, super funds?
Supernova, yeah.
Supernova, and so all these applications, instead of being individual, they're all gonna be grouped into one. And you start checking boxes, and it's just becoming more and more competitive. We have more and more competition.
There's more builders wanting to take advantage, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to understand sometimes, but in the long run, I think that when year 18 comes along and that loan gets paid off with all the interest, I do think it's beneficial to the city. We're not asking for a waiver, it's just a deferral.
Yeah, it's not a waiver, and I think that's important too to consider, so.
Where does the money come from meanwhile?
Where does what money come
The
from?
250,000
For,
impact
well,
fees?
it'll come out of whatever fund, like, for example, water, wastewater would pay for that. Any infrastructure or whatever, it comes out of whatever funds going to be allocated at the time. The enterprise funds, mostly streets, same thing, their street funds, gas tax, et cetera.
We would allocate funds that would otherwise go to repairs or other needs that we're now liable for to help this development, correct?
until the money comes back in.
Until the money comes in.
If that, in fact, is a dollar figure, though, that's the thing, and so that's the other element too.
And I agree with you in many ways. I'm just not comfortable because, again, we're throwing around a lot of numbers and nothing's set in stone, no exact figures. We're third tier to be paid back. And again, looking at our budget and all the fights, and we have the utility taxes. On an off-year election, we don't know what that looks like. And if we commit to this, we're in a lot of trouble. That is my only concern.
Procedural question. Because we have a 4-member council tonight, what happens if there's a tie on this vote? I said, if there's a tie on this vote, since we're a 4-member council tonight,
If there's a tie, I'm sorry. If there is a tie, it doesn't pass.
Tie means it doesn't pass.
okay.
What is your deadline again?
The 20th, September 20th.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote? Do I have a motion to approve this item?
I move that we approve the item.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Nay?
Nay.
All right. It's a tie.
For the record, yes, 2-2. You got, who voted what?
Okay. All right.
So I guess procedurally, my question is, can we come back, or how does that work? Because if we can maybe have some meetings and maybe walk through numbers so you can understand it better.
Oh, I have a
what
full
happens.
understanding of it at this point. It's just, again, what ifs don't convince me, and we have to talk about that a little more.
Right, I'm just
She's
asking.
asking if there's an option to have the item before council again, before the 20th.
Before the 20th, correct.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying that at this point, after our discussion, I totally understand what's happening. So
That would require,
She's asking that. She's asking.
procedurally, that would require a special meeting.
Yeah,
Yes, because we don't meet till the 21st.
right.
So we would essentially be re-voting on something we
Could
just
with another
voted on?
Council member, yeah.
That
Or if it's a
depends
different
on what
proposal.
the request is.
Yep.
Or if it's a different proposal, that could be, if there's an appetite for a special meeting, but at this point, our next scheduled meeting is the 21st. That may be, actually, it may be discussed here, because we do have the League of Cities.
Yes,
It
yes.
actually may be taking place
That-
on the 20th.
That is on the agenda.
Yeah.
As a consideration on when our
Yeah.
second normal date which is the third Tuesday, but it's on the agenda to discuss maybe having to move that because there's a scheduling conflict with council members.
Would you be bringing it back with some changes to the proposal, or?
Well, we would need to, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's really a Rubik's Cube. It's not just plug in one number and
Sure.
and you can figure it out. So, so we would be kind of looking at things and you know, speaking with the city manager and kind of looking at different options. Now, the deadline is on the 20th. Your council meetings aren't until the evening, and the deadlines are typically, you know, they're either at noon or at 4 in the afternoon or something like that. So the 20th would not work for us.
It
but-
may be,
Could
you know,
the
the,
council reconsider the vote if we had no fee deferral on the amount due? Like we paid the entire current amount due and we just deferred the balance?
that would need to be proposed and be brought before council again, because we've already voted on the item and it's already failed. So,
Yeah, I would entertain
Yeah.
seeing something different, more fair to the city.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 5.
Mr. Marty Cohen, good luck, my friend.
5L, discussion and potential action for direction on the request from Brawley Investment Ventures LLC to modify the off-site improvement security requirements on Latigo Ranch Subdivision Unit 2. This will be presented by our City Attorney, Bill Smurden. Backup is on pages 120 through 130.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, send the staff report. This is the Latico Ranch agreement that the council pretty much agreed to terms in open session, but we still need a written development agreement. We have one in place for Unit 1. Mr. Coyne's ready to proceed to Unit 2. And his attorney and I have been working on this agreement. It'll contain most of the items we've already touched on in the past in Unit 1. But one thing Mr. Coyne's requesting is to reduce the amount of security for off-site improvements to 50-50 instead of 100 and 100. To explain what that means, there's two types of securities that a developer posts. One is for payment, paying subcontractors, laborers, whatever. The MAP Act says the city must impose a security requirement between 50 and 100% of estimated costs for payment. The other is performance, and that is if the development fails and the city's left holding the responsibility to finish off-site improvements, there's got to be security for that. And again, the MAP Act requires us to have between 50 and 100% of the estimated costs. So what happens is, on Brawley's ordinance is, our ordinance says 100% for payment, 100% for performance. Mr. Coyne's asking that you consider reducing that to 50%, 50%. That's not something staff can do. We have to follow the ordinance. Council has the discretion to do that if you like. It's your ordinance. It's not our ordinance. It's not staff's. It's your ordinance. So that's what's framed up in front of you today.
How does this compare to other cities in the valley, the way they deal with this type of a request?
The cities I work for charge 100, 100.
Any other questions?
My understanding, did Imperial just recently charge 100, 100?
Well,
projects?
when we were negotiating the Unit 1 development, I checked with Dennis Marita, and he said he charges 100, 100. I don't know what they're charging at this point. That was last year, I think.
Okay.
Gordon, can you take us back a little bit of history from 2007, 2008, when we had that collapse, and what was the city on the hook for? You've been here that long, right? We have a moratorium on evictions that will expire at the end of October, I believe, or beginning of October, which could send the housing market into a full spiral, and I'm very concerned about that, whether we'd be stuck in another situation like 2007, or was it 8? I don't remember.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was probably about 2008 when everything kind of came to a standstill. But yeah, I mean, Unit 1 was recorded. There was a security for the city, didn't get anything out of it.
What was the impact on the city budget?
The lawyer's fees that we had to pay?
On this development?
No,
No, we're talking about,
Yeah,
I
well,
want
no,
to go back on some
the first
history.
unit of Latigo Ranch, yeah, we went, yeah, there was legal
Long
fees.
time ago, yeah.
And just like every development that was,
Yeah.
it was there.
Well, and I don't know, I don't believe we called the bonds on Latigo Ranch. In fact, I know we didn't. That was still being negotiated when I took over as city attorney, and we ultimately made the determination that we would release that security. The city of Brawley did call the bonds on La Paloma, completely different than Mr. Coyne's.
Right.
Those were bonds. The city did call the bonds. Again, it was before
Yeah.
my time. There was.
Yeah, no, we didn't call the bonds, but like I said, we didn't get anything out of them.
Well, we got litigation and we got some money.
Yeah,
for
we got
La Paloma.
litigation. Yeah, but it wasn't a lot of money, and it cost us a lot of money, right?
Yeah, and yeah,
It
sure.
cost us quite a bit in legal fees, and we only got a percentage, but I found that to be I've been here many, many years, and I found on bonds, that's what happens. They never pay off the full
Yeah,
amount, they
they
like to
don't.
pay off about 10 cents on a dollar. So,
Yeah.
but that's bonds, that's not necessarily Mr.
Yeah, Mr.
Coyne's
Coyne's proposing
issue.
deeds of trust on real estate, not
Yes.
bonds, which is, it's allowed under the
So-
MAP Act.
So when impacts fiscally wouldn't necessarily be a budget item on everything that we could quantify, but we have about 5 arrested developments. The mayor coined that phrase. But we have a bunch of soft costs with crime and graffiti and maintenance of empty, look at, for example, Lucky Ranch out there.
Yeah.
It just causes a lot of problems when something is not developed fully out. And we've been dealing with that, well, I've been dealing with that since September 4th of last year. Every day I get a complaint on something. So those are costs that happens when things don't get, and Mr. Cohen was not involved with the past, any developments as far as I'm aware.
I just want to base it on history and see what predicament the city was in last time.
Right, but what was, I'm sorry, you let off with the moratorium? I didn't get.
There's a concern of mine, all right, that's neither here nor there, of why the way I'm looking at the market. But I wanted to know what happened last time when we had that crash, and how did it affect the city?
Well, in several subdivisions, obviously, like you said, Lucky Ranch, La Paloma.
Yeah, they failed, but I think the question is like, what was the financial impact to the city?
Correct.
I mean, it's minimal with respect to us, yeah.
You know, probably, but usually we got the property owner to clean up, after bugging him enough. We probably did have to spend some of our own, but then again, and obviously, lack of new property taxes, but that wasn't beyond our control or anybody's control because it was the market.
Right.
There's nothing you could have done to bring more people in there.
It all depends. The security is a gamble, and a development's a gamble. Is the developer's putting his money in, his credit and what have you, to build his property, and everybody hopes and nobody calls the security, because whenever you call the security, that means the development's failed, the city's not getting the development it wanted, the developer's not getting the development it wanted, the people that want to buy the houses aren't getting the houses they wanted. So it's never fun.
Might I add, that was then and this is now. I don't think we'll see a 2008, but I want to go a little step further to say, hopefully some of you had a chance to drive out there. We have $12 million worth of houses being built at one time, 46 homes, okay? The best canal is underground. We are being held up putting in Wildcat Road by other entities, okay? The reason I'm here today is because we are 7 houses short of being sold out of those 46 houses, many from outside of Brawley. The reason we're on the gas to get this going is we want to break ground on Unit 2. I've already broken ground on Unit 2. We have sewer all the way in. We have mass grading already done on 2A and 2B, and we are starting storm drain, actually started it today. Probably most of the infrastructure will be in before we get around to get all the parties to sign the final map. This is just part of the security is part of the procedure of recording the final map, is really the only reason I'm here today. I do have no debt on that property. We have no construction loans at this point in time on that property. And so what I'm asking for, it, I've never been asked before at any other city, and I tried to hurry up today to get you updates of what other cities do. And I have Abraham Campos, who's a public works director in the city of El Centro. You know what he told me, speaking of bonding? He goes, Mr. Coyne, if it's bonding, we want 200%. If it's cash or other better security, 125%. I'll show you the text right here. It came from Abraham Campos today. So everybody, all the other cities have the same feeling on bonding companies as you do, Mr. Couchman.
I'm sure they do.
So the problem that I have here and experienced just a little bit though, and all the other subdivisions and all the other 30 years that I've done it in different cities, typically they ask me for an engineer's estimate. There's typically credibility with the engineer and there's typically credibility with the developer. We put in engineer's estimates of what our bids were, right? We have a budget, go out to bid. In this particular case, in this city, it was returned to us many times over saying, we want you to put in prevailing rate on your engineer's estimates. So automatically, guess what? They're 40 to 50% higher than what I'm paying to develop the project. And then we want 200% over and above that. So just as an example, as I mentioned in the last council meeting when I was here a month or two ago, is that $1 million job now is a $4 million security. And a lot of developers come in and build 6 or 8 or 12 at a time. We're building 46 at one time. So the 100%, we're already at 50%, and I have to take that 50% and add, we're proposing 100%, not 200%. If it was 200, I'm at $5.4 million at prevailing wage to put in infrastructure and improvements on unit 2A, 2B, and 2C. If you ask me for that other 100%, that goes to $10 million on about $3.5 million worth of improvements I'm going to be doing. How does that make sense to you guys? You know, it really, really doesn't. If it was, I'm improving 6 lots and it's $300,000 and you know, 200% is 600, that's probably a little more reasonable. Like I said, the infrastructure's well on its way to being in. So I don't think I'm asking. So in a sense, if you take that 50% on the prevailing wage that this city asked me to do on the engineer's estimate.
What's the reason for that?
I'm sorry?
It's prevailing rate on the labor, right?
Well, yes.
But what's
Yes.
the reason for that? Why did they ask you to do that instead of just?
Probably assuming in case they have to foreclose or I go out of business or go bankrupt, they want it covered up front. So then at the 100%, in a sense, the city is getting 150%. Besides what I've already completed and had my engineer sign off on, the one that's representing the city. So it's really not complicated.
Just keep in mind that the only thing the city collects on is performance. Payment is for the laborers.
Correct.
Right? Subcontractors are laborers.
Yeah. And let me take you to one other important level. Typically, whether it's 200%, 100%, whatever, 50-50 is 100%, the law does state no lower than 50%, no higher than 100%. But you know what you all have to do and every other city has to do? Is guess what? You bond for that amount of money, but guess what you have to do? You have to subordinate for construction loan to the bank. That puts them in first position. I'm not asking for subordination. You have as less risk as you could possibly have because automatically when you support to a bank loan, they're the dictator and takes control of that project if the project goes south. So realistically, our goal is to have 100 homes built, finished, and moved in within 12 months. We're well on our way, and keep on going until we finish. I made the comment, everybody, I thought I was a little bit optimistic, but I think in 18 months we can be out of there and sold out, and hopefully looking for something else to do in the city of Brawley. But this is a simple request. I do want to point out, so you don't take the wrong message from me, I get that low-income project is not apples with apples for what I'm doing. I would never come before you and ask for crazy things like that, although I wish I would have kind of got into that, what do you call it, tax credit business a long time ago, because I think they're making a killing. But we're in the market right now, and at the end of the day, we have never failed on a project, and everything I told you are facts. Mm-hmm. And we will deliver. We are delivering. and we will continue to deliver, and we hope we can continue to grow with this city. So all I ask is if you take that prevailing wage, the 100%, which they call 50/50, we're ready to record maps 2A, 2B, and 2C.
Question for council, if I may. What security, you mentioned real estate, but what exactly would be the security?
It would be 2A, 2B, and 2C.
The actual
You would have
property
the
of
actual
Lattico.
property, you would have, which sewer's already in, mass grading's already done, you would have 160 lots to secure the property. Now, just to be good neighbors, when we did Unit 1, we went ahead and did the 200% because we had enough equity in it. But bottom line is I cannot record all the maps and keep construction going. We hope by the time we deliver the last house in Unit 1, we're going to have houses almost ready to deliver in 2, so it'll just be clockwork. There's other builders that have 6-month gaps in between delivering houses because of bonding issues or security issues or any of that kind of stuff. We don't have that problem.
So in theory, if it were to fail, which that's not what I'm saying is going to happen,
Not gonna
but
fail.
if it were to fail, we would have that property as the collateral.
10 times better than a bond.
And Bill, refresh my memory. I know we've had these conversations, but the value of that, as I thought there was an issue on whether it was an undivided lot or we were considering all the individual lots as
That was in
Unit 1?
Unit 1.
Okay.
But Mr. Coyne's going to record the map. He has to record the map before it can start pulling permits, so it'll be subdivided lots, which has more value than acreage.
Much more value. You'd have 160 lots recorded.
Thank you.
Much more
Thank you for the
value.
clarification.
Mr. Coyne is building out there. I don't know if if the other council members have been out there, but I have been out there driving around, looking it over. He is in the process of building quite a few homes out there as we speak. I can't speak for the success of the project because I don't know, but I do see development occurring. I do see activity occurring. Let's put it to you that way.
I've been out there myself. Yes. I've seen it. I've seen what's happening.
And I can tell council that the trend in development is to go away from bonds. Most developers are going away from bonds, and Mr. Coyne's kind of on the cutting edge too. Of another thing is a lot of developers are now building and owning and renting out property because rents are so high now in a lot of places. So that is the trend.
Most of the rentals, right?
No, that's not true. 75% at this point, more like 85% is sold. These are buyers coming into Brawley to spend their sales tax dollars.
The public comment?
Sorry?
There's a public comment.
Yes. That's the question.
I had 2 questions, but you just asked one of them. It was going to be if these were for sale or for rent. The other question is just in light of all of these different development situations you guys are considering, what is the status of the Urban 3 study?
That was asked a little bit ago, and Tyler said that there was a hiccup in the information gathering from the county, the tax assessor's office. Is that where the problem is? But have they given you a timeline for when they might finish their study?
That's what I was.
I'm sorry if I missed your answer to that earlier.
That's all right.
Texting away. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I am hopeful that it will be in October. The issue was communicating, trying to get information out of the county on information regarding affordable housing and who's paying what taxes for real estate. Now that the county is engaging and understanding what we're asking for, that the process is speeding up. It was stalled out for a month or 2 before we had to go communicate with other members at the county level to get a response. But
So you're thinking next month?
I'm hoping next month.
Okay, thank you.
And that study will be very critical when we consider entitling new subdivisions, but there's nothing worse than a failed subdivision. And a failed entitled subdivision is the worst. And we have several of those, unfortunately.
We have spent the last 7 years turning around subdivisions in every city, including the county. And they've all been completed on task, on time. What else was I going to say on the revenue? Oh, this particular project, as I mentioned when your police chief was up here, does have a service CFD. It is triggered at the point of certificate of occupancy. The faster I get these houses built, the faster the city's going to start getting additional revenue to cover some of those costs. So it's the way I look at it, it's a win-win. Your odds of failure are at this point 0.
Yeah, the only question that I have, well, I have a little question. We're talking about either going 50/50 or 100/100. But my question is how much is the property that's being put up for security worth? Is it only equal to the 50/50, or is it equal to more than the 50/50, closer to the 100?
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I did mention it earlier, Mr. Couchman.
I'm sorry.
There's not enough to cover $10 million worth of security if you nail me for 200%, 100 and 100.
Okay.
If you allow the prevailing wage that's built in already and the 50/50, that takes you to about 140 to 150% of the improvement costs. And there is enough for that I can record all 3 maps and continue going forward.
Okay. Okay.
And the burden of the resources you have to go through to record a map, and all the parties, and then council meeting and staff, it's probably from today, it's going to take me another month to get it all done. That's providing everybody cooperates.
Is prevailing wage pay estimated on the payment to the contractors, or is prevailing wage on both of those, the performance and payment?
The way I understand, Guillermo requires prevailing wage on payment and performance.
On both, okay.
Yeah, because you would be on the hook of that if the contractor would fail to pay the prevailing wage, you would be on the hook for that, correct?
They're not paying prevailing wage.
No.
But they're not, so they're
Yeah,
not.
we have
Okay.
just to
That's
clarify.
why I'm confused of why they
No,
require
I don't get
that.
confused, but prevailing wage or not, every single contractor files what they call a pre-lien on a job. The minute materials are dropped, they're saying, we have a right to lien this job prior to anybody else, other than the bank who made the construction loan, which I don't have, that they have control to get their money first. And so realistically, there are pre-liens. Before we make a payment to them, they give us a release, a conditional release. That relieves us of any liens on the property. That makes sure that they get paid. And we're in that process and have been for quite some time.
There's another thing to consider here. Because Mr. Coyne's not proposing putting up bonds, he's proposing putting up this real estate. If his development fails, and this is always worst case scenario planning, right? If his development succeeds, we release everything and everybody's happy, right?
Whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it fails, then we would foreclose, we'd own that. Now, the question then becomes to council, do we build that infrastructure? And if we do, City of Brawley does, we have to pay prevailing wage. Or do we market the property, sell it to somebody else?
That's
And
what
if
you
they
do.
build it,
So the city wouldn't be at a loss at any point?
No.
Unless we decide to build the infrastructure?
if we decide to build the infrastructure, then we pay prevailing wage.
That would be a wild deal.
That would-
I don't see us
Yeah,
doing
no,
that.
Yeah, and that's another reason why bonds are tough, because the idea behind bonds is we call the bonds, we go in, put the infrastructure, and pay the premium price for it.
Another question, is the agreement solely with Brawley Investment Ventures LLC, and it can't be transferred if it's sold? Like if the development is sold, this agreement that it's covering, it won't transfer with that?
I believe the way we did it,
Well,
it can be assigned, I think. I can't remember.
I'm going to be responsible and finish it to the end. So if you assign it, that means somebody is taking debt on the property. So they're either not going to buy it or the work has to be completed. Nobody's going to buy some lots from me knowing that there's a $5 million lien on that lot. And so, yeah, I'm taking responsibility, as I have on every other broke subdivision in this county.
My biggest concern is not so much with looking at this issue, it's the fact that we have an ordinance that says we're going to charge 100% and 100%. Now, that's kind of in some ways, I see it as a nebulous thing because it depends upon what the 100% is and what the 50% is and what we're going to do with that. So if we have an ordinance that says 100 and 100%, but we make an exception to that, then we might as well reverse the ordinance, redo the ordinance, and make it 50% or 75% or whatever we want to do it. However, that doesn't get to the crux of the issue. The crux of the issue is, what's it worth? What are you going to have to pay? And there's a lot of other factors that are involved in that. So that's one of my, that's a major concern of mine.
I
is
think
changing
for
the
me-
ordinance.
And I understand it. I understand that, and I do understand Mr. Coyne's point. This is a broken project, right? It had been for many years, many years. He has developed. We went through our first broken project that started up again was Florentine. We've seen that flourish. We've seen that develop. Now there's commercial development that's building around it. Mr. Coyne did come to us before, and I know at the time it was a little bit of a far-fetched idea to get the IID to help pay for the undergrounding of the canal, but that happened.
Yes.
So, and I know you've got a reputation as a businessman and somebody who's going to haggle, and you know what? You've been successful doing that. Great. And I support that. I want to see the development happen. I see sticks going up. I see the development taking place. I know the housing market here in Brawley and throughout the valley, and quite honestly, throughout the state, it's impacted. You're bringing something here. It's being developed, and I want to see it grow, and I want to see it develop. Otherwise, those lots sat there vacant for over a decade, and with dirt, dust, and weeds and everything else growing out there. So, and I do understand the argument you're making with respect to the security, but I think in this case, it is risk, but like anything else, it's limited risk. It's also risk in taking a bond. How difficult was that to try and get,
Yeah, we don't
to
get
settle?
any money.
I mean, that was worthless. Those things were not worth anything, right? Because there were so many defaults that they were paying, 10 cents on the dollar, if that, and so but this is different, right? This is different. He's securing it with real estate. So I think, at least for me, I have a lot more security in that, and then him being here multiple times already. I've had conversations with you. You've done what you said you're going to do. I mean, what else are we asking for?
Yeah, I can tell you, Mr. Nava, that staff does get, well, you did this for Mr. Coyne, how come you don't do it for us? And the answer has been, you didn't bring $1 million from IID.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I mean,
that's
he
a-
brought $1 million to us.
Rather than change it, and I did, I was responsible, thank you very much. But maybe you set this up as don't change all your rules already, it's just case by case. The quality of the subdivision, the quality of the builder, there's a lot of ramifications, as you said. Maybe if somebody else brought $1 million to you, you can consider it. But this is one hopefully you'll look back on, you'll be proud, and you'll be happy you made all the right decisions.
I think the reason that it's standard practice 100 and 100 is because we're talking about bonds there. You're not talking about actual, collateral property.
Well, maybe
And
what we,
prevailing wage,
maybe we do
too.
need to modify the ordinance to talk about
The
different rates for
difference.
different types of security.
The difference between.
Yeah, and that was one of my key concerns, because it's required for prevailing rate, but it's not being paid, so then why are we requiring that? Well, Guillermo, you're back there, I think you can answer that question for us.
Well,
I think it just comes down to if the city's-
If it was a government-funded job, it would be prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely, but
Don't need to-
it's a private job.
Yeah, you don't need to even talk
If
about
the
it.
city's on the
do it,
hook
we
to
gotta
do the
pay.
construction, then yeah, we got to pay prevailing
Yeah,
wages. And we want to make sure we
absolutely,
have that
and
money.
that's why.
I'm going to be done this project so fast, then you can make a decision whether you want to offer it to everybody else in the future based on the history and how this one goes. I mean, bottom line is, it's not going to go broke. We'll have 50% of it built out in the next 180 days. And, yeah.
Does everyone feel like you've got enough
This is,
information?
I guess what I'm trying to point out when I first started with you guys, can't believe it's been 2.5 years I've gotten to know you guys already. This is the way of the future. I got a call from the city of Calexico the other day, and they have a new planning and services director down there. She came from Imperial, and the first thing was, come down, have a meeting with us, and what concessions can we give you to build in our town? This is the future that, if you find something that's good, you want to keep it, then you want to be flexible and work with those people. And we're not asking for $1 million worth of deferment for 55 years. We're asking, have faith and trust to the performance we've done to not take a out of control $10 million security on a $3 million job.
Just one last question before, we did waive other fees, right? At the beginning, earlier you requested us to waive other fees.
Right.
Has that been taken care of at this point? Where are we at on that?
Part of the
'Cause
agreement.
we have waived
Part of
other waives.
The council voted to waive certain fees.
Yeah.
At the start of this project way back when.
And
Yes.
Those will be incorporated into the agreement because council agreed to that in open session.
Yes.
And then there was the deferment of impact fees.
Right.
But that's deferred for a couple of months.
Just for the occupancy.
Just to
Yeah,
see
that
it.
was the-
Certificate.
that was
See,
the-
okay, I'm just trying to figure out where we're at.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that'll probably be in that agreement too.
Yeah, everything's identical other than this request, just to get
Yeah.
the maps all done at the same time. I probably don't even need to come back and see you anymore if you approve this tonight. Realistically, all the maps will be recorded.
We like you so much, we want to see you.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Well, hopefully I'll be coming back on another project.
No doubt. And that's, think about that. I mean, I know you've also talked about some of the development that you've brought into El Centro, and you considered it for the city of Brawley as well. So, I mean, we're starting to see that now, you know? So there is a grocery outlet that's being built. There's other things that are being developed within our community. So it's just, I want to see things improve, and this is an improvement. So I'm in favor. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're in favor? Okay. My daddy was a gambler. I guess in terms of this, unless he fails, we're not out on anything.
Yeah.
And even if he does fail, at least we got some money. I mean, better than a bond.
I don't want to see him fail. I want to see him succeed.
No, I don't want to see him fail either, and I'm not saying he's going to. What I'm saying is, that would be the scenario that it
I
might
wouldn't be
cost us.
wasting my time and your time if I.
Right.
That's why, remember, we are setting precedents. Anybody else that comes to ask for these
Yes.
concessions, we're gonna have to give
But
it
we
to
have.
them.
Well, we may have to.
We've had them for small developers, we've had them for larger developers, we've had them for private business, small ones. We've done so many things to try to improve our community. This is just one of those, so.
All right, is there a motion to?
I'll make a
approve
motion
this?
to approve the item.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Okay.
That's 4-0.
Okay.
That-
Always gonna be that way.
So I'll get with Mr. Cordova and away we go.
Just be,
See you guys at the finish line.
just be successful,
Good
okay?
luck.
I promise you the
I know you will.
I've heard a lot of people saying that they want a developer to bring in a Chick-fil-A, so just keep that in mind.
We're leaving that to you.
We're actually working on it.
Are you?
Leaving that to you.
If you get one of those in Brawley, then people will come from out of
Now you
town.
got 'em hostage. You should have said that before we.
Well, look, he brought in Panera, he brought in, and they,
Chipotle and Chick-fil-A.
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
There we go.
Yeah,
But
no,
think
we've
about
seen
that.
what
He
he's
brought-
done,
he
we've seen
brought-
what he's
he
done
brought
down
in
there.
Panera, he brought in the habit. I mean, he's done things that others haven't. That Starbucks, that's his whole, you know?
I just want him to
I just think that we should ask these questions every single, especially, you know, those of us have been here less
That's
of
what
time.
you get
That's why-
elected for, is to ask questions.
And I'm asking for
You're
history.
asking questions.
History.
Yeah.
I need to know, you got it, and that's
Yeah.
why, you know,
Well,
Mr. Mayor, on this
Wrong with
next
that?
item, I am going to recuse myself. There may be a potential conflict of interest, and I want to avoid that. It's just based on the proximity of the requester. It's about 150, 175 feet from my building that I own, so I will recuse myself for that purpose.
Okay.
Have fun.
I need to make a head call.
we want to take a little
Take a little
break?
break, all right.
Little break,
All right.
5 minutes less.
I forgot George's.
Which item?
This is item 5M, discussion and potential action to approve the request submitted by Abir Shaba of Brawley Meat Market to authorize her business for off-sale of beer and wine in accordance to a Type 20 ABC license. This is presented by Police Chief Jimmy Duran. Backup is on pages 131 to 135.
Good evening once again, members of the council, city manager, and public. So we have Brawley Meat Market owner submitted an application for a Type 20 ABC license, and she's requesting approval for off-sale beer and wine. So we did a review of call for service to this establishment and the immediate area, and our search didn't reveal any issues or any items of concern that would discourage support or indicate reason to disapprove her request from the law enforcement perspective. So at this point, I would ask that you would take that in consideration and approve the request submitted by Abir Shaba.
Okay. Is there a motion?
This would be like a regular market sales, just like a regular neighborhood market.
Yes, like a regular
And,
neighborhood.
across the street, there is actual American Legion operates a bar, and they sell liquor on site.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know that there's any.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it. I'd like to make a motion to approve item M.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Nay.
Just for the record, Just for the record, that's a majority of the quorum, and
Correct.
that's all that's required at this point.
Thank you for clarifying. I considered that actually before that.
You have to think of
I was
those
like,
things, right?
okay, I know it's gonna go, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Either way, it would have been, right, the same,
So we need to call George back.
1 to 2 or 2 to 1.
What do you want?
We're ready.
Come here. What do you want?
Don't make me come
What do you want?
Hard, be built right next to your building.
What do you-
Item 5N, discussion and potential action to adopt resolution number 2021 resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, accepting grant funds allocated to the Citizens Option for Public Safety, or COPS program, and submittal of the expenditure plan for fiscal year 2019-2020, funding through the State of California Local Safety and Protection Account. This is presented by our police chief. Backup is on pages 136 to 139.
Yes, in this case, we identify some funds available to the city through what's commonly known as the COPS grant. And we identified a fund balance at $164,181.53. And this is for fiscal year 1920. And it is available for distribution to our city and without matching funds required, which is some words that our city manager likes to hear. I'm going to repeat it again, without matching funds required. So to receive this grant, we are required to adopt a resolution accepting the funds and draft an expenditure plan, which we have done. We're planning on expending the funding on police and communication equipment and services. So at this point, I would ask the council to approve accepting the grant funds from this opportunity.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right. Item 5O, discussion and potential action to approve resolution number 2021 resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, appointing members to the Brawley Parks and Recreation Commission with terms ending June 30th, 2024. Backup is on pages 140 to 143. So, let me just look here.
That's reappointments, right?
Yeah, it's basically reappointments. And I think, were we short a commissioner?
We are short one there, I believe.
In Parks, no.
Yep, there's only two asking for reappointment, and one had asked, that requested not to be on the commission
reappointed,
anymore,
okay.
but we do not have a third member at this
Okay.
time.
So we're going to need to put that back out for
Right.
advertisement or get the word out that we have one seat available on Parks and Rec Commission.
Right.
Okay, so I'm, basically, we're just looking for a motion to approve this resolution, which will reappoint 2 members, and we're going to need to look for a third member. Do I have
Okay.
a motion?
I'll move to appoint the 2 members that are for reappointment.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Item carries. Item 5P, discussion and potential action to approve resolution number 2021 resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, appointing members to the Brawley Airport Commission with terms ending June 30th of 2023. Backup is on pages 144 to 147. We have 2 seats. These are also reappointments?
No.
No? These are new?
We have one commissioner stepping down and a new applicant for one of the positions.
This says reappointment on the one.
Is a reappointment for Elizabeth Kern
Yes.
and a new applicant, Kenneth Robertson?
Kenneth Robertson. Is that it? Is that
Yes.
the 2 that we want?
Yes.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve those 2?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions?
I said aye.
Aye, okay.
Okay,
There we go.
here we go.
Item 5Q, last but not least, discussion and potential action, regular city council meeting date of September 21st, 2021, and California League of Cities Conference.
So this is on the agenda for some action to consider moving the council meeting of the September 21st. Originally, when it was first put on the agenda, there was 4 out of the 5 members were going to attend League of Cities. We still have 1 council member that will be attending the League of Cities. And so the discussion here is, do we want to move it, keep it the same, open for council's direction?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to be here.
You'll be at
You're going to League?
That day I would have to be flying out to the League
You're
of
flying out
Cities.
at League, right?
Yeah, unless you know, I have to fly out like at 3 in the morning.
Is there any consideration for having the meeting take place on the Friday, the 17th?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I agree
You know,
with
that way it
that.
gives them an opportunity
Yes.
if they're going to present and they have something different, at least it gives them the professional courtesy to do that, or not?
I have an event, no, wait, no, I do
You
not.
can't make
Hang
it?
on, let me think, hang on.
About-
Hold on here a minute.
Would it be an afternoon meeting or a?
I don't know. I mean, that's up to whoever. I'm open. I can make myself available. I'm open
I
to
will
that.
be out of town.
You will be? Okay.
I plan
When
to
will
be
you
out
be
of
in town?
Huh?
When will you be in town?
I
Thursday
have to be
before?
out of town on the 17th and 18th. 18th is Saturday.
What
We're
about
not
the
gonna do that.
16th, Mayor Pro Tem Couchman?
16th would probably be okay.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Councilmember Nava, is that if their terms change and they're
That
more
doesn't give you
acceptable,
guys
I mean,
much time
I would
to
like
get
to give them that
anything ready
professional
for it.
courtesy to come back and present before their deadline.
And if we're going to meet anyway, you know what I mean? It's like,
I would like
I
to-
just can't make it beyond the 21st.
Okay.
I have to be at a professional,
We could do the 20th, but the 16th is okay, or the 20th is okay with me, or any of that's okay. I mean, I don't.
The 20th would require an early meeting if we want to accommodate that group, because they have to submit by COB.
Yeah, I don't know that we schedule our meetings according to that group, but.
understood. But
whatever.
I'm saying if we're having to do it anyway.
Yes, then the
Just as a
16th makes
professional
more
courtesy,
sense.
yeah.
But that doesn't give the city staff much time to get all the agenda together and everything.
The requirements for a special meeting, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be require 24 hours. 4 hours.
Oh, the agenda's,
Agenda posting.
posting's not a problem, it's
Yep.
getting everything
It's getting
on.
the.
Getting everything on there. and
Yeah,
getting it
on
all
there,
set
and
up.
there potentially would have to push some items because of requirements for public notification, you know, amount of days. So that could be an issue for certain items as well.
Are we expecting to have a heavy agenda on the 21st?
I don't know. Originally, that was the one hot topic. The cell tower was scheduled for then, but if we move it forward, then there won't be enough posting requirements as far as public notifications for that type of
You
thing.
could meet on the
Goodness.
28th.
For a third meeting? You saying?
No,
No.
I'm saying just the 28th.
Just push it.
Just push the meeting, our current meeting up for a week, but then that means we meet on the next, on October, that means we're meeting on like the 5th.
A week
or
later.
something, The 5th, yeah, a week later. I don't think that works very well either. I don't know.
So the cell tower topic is on the agenda for the 21st?
Potentially,
Potentially.
if it was scheduled for the 20th, potentially that would be on there. No? Yes.
Oh, it would be.
Okay.
And that's the earliest.
Yeah, that's the earliest we can do to meet our requirements for public notification.
Understood. That's the earliest?
Yes.
Okay. So anything
But we
beyond
could push
that?
the cell tower off to the first meeting in October?
We could.
Yes, yes, you definitely could. The other.
I just may be out of town on the 5th of October.
Is
Just
that
so
the
you
actual
know.
meeting date?
That's the
That's
meeting.
the actual meeting
That's the
date. I may
meeting.
be out of town on that.
Okay.
So
So we're,
I can still meet via Zoom,
you
but I
could,
just may not be available in person.
That is still an option.
Yeah.
Right, we're still under the governor's
Yes.
order, so
Yeah.
that's okay.
yep.
All right.
So then do we want to just plan for the 16th?
I'm okay with the 16th. I mean, if everybody else is. I mean, I'll do it. I mean, I just.
I'm open to the
Do you want to try to
16th.
text Donnie and see
Maybe
if
we
he's-
don't put that stuff on the
Yeah, it
agenda.
wouldn't-
We
wouldn't
keep
be-
the agenda.
wouldn't be
It just
able to
is
go
tough
on.
to do. I mean, who knows where he's at right now?
I'm open to the 16th as well.
I'm
All right.
open. I mean, I'm open, so it's not,
Okay.
The 16th, it's Thursday, time, what time were you suggesting?
regular
Yeah,
time?
6 PM.
The regular, 6 PM.
Yeah.
Well,
That makes
staff will have to, we'll do our, we'll get on there what we can, and what we can't, we'll have to.
We may not get that agenda until the 13th or 14th, though.
Right.
Right, okay, that's fine.
Well, if the
Or
cell
even
tower is on the
15th.
5th, that at least
If we
alleviates
move the
that.
cell tower, that'll leave that meeting a little bit less long, I guess, or.
So it would have to be posted by the 15th, correct? For a 16th
agenda,
meeting,
yes.
Special agenda,
Yeah.
special meeting agenda, yeah.
all right.
It'll give us
So,
an
and this is due in part, just so everyone's clear, it's due in part because there's scheduled travel for one of the council members who's representing the city at California League of Cities event, and he's a voting delegate. So,
Yes.
and we want to accommodate his presence here. So,
Correct.
so we wouldn't have the meeting on the 21st, we would have it on the 16th. And partly, it's to try and accommodate the developer just as a professional courtesy, just to see if they can, if
If they want to-
if they
if-
want
if
to.
they
I
want
mean,
to
there's
come in,
no,
it's up
you
to
know,
them.
if they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
But, so the 16th, I'm open. Is everybody else open?
It works for me.
It works for me.
Works for me.
Okay.
And then for staff, I mean, the cell tower topic will be on the 5th of October. And just so I can state that, I may not be here that day, but I
Available
can't, but
by
I
Zoom.
will be available via Zoom.
That's good.
That work?
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to change our meeting to a special meeting on September 16th at 6 PM.
I'll make a motion to change our scheduled meeting from the 21st to a special meeting on the 16th at 6 PM.
I second it.
Are you second? He beat me.
do it.
Yep, you did.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? That item carries. Okay, moving on to item 6, departmental reports. 6A is a monthly staff report for September 2021. This will be presented by our Personnel and Risk Management Administrator, Shirley Bonillas,
Oh, thank you.
on page
I'm gonna drink
148.
Good evening,
Yes.
council members, mayor.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management, and welcome back. It's been a busy time while you were gone. We still have 10 positions open. They just changed which positions they are. We have reposted the building inspector. Parks coordinator is in the final stages of hire. We are down to only 2 police officers that we're missing and 1 dispatcher. We have people in backgrounds, according to chief. And we just got word today that our interim chief water treatment plant operator received his certification so he can become the chief operator. So yay, Jorge Valle Gonzalez. And of course, I'll answer any questions you have. You're good?
Why don't you say I work for a living, don't call me ma'am?
Take care, thanks.
That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Item 7, informational report. 7A is a record of building permits for June and July 2021 in the city of Brawley, prepared by Oscar Escalante, our interim building official. Backup is on pages 149 to 154. A lot of stuff going on in Brawley.
Tremendous amount of
I
building.
think that's the most I've ever seen.
Wow, like 4 pages.
That's great.
We haven't seen that level of activity in a decade.
Yep.
Yeah, right, that or like that, huh? Yeah.
Item 8, city
Yeah.
council member reports. Please keep it short and sweet. We'll start with Councilman Castro.
You really expect me to keep it short and
Yeah.
sweet?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah. All right, I'm just super excited to be back, guys. Truly appreciate it. We did this walk, right, 45 days, about 1,600 miles. We haven't calculated exactly that. We need to sit down and do that. But one of the things that I did is I observed every downtown that I went through, and it was many, many, many cities. I saw what's working and what isn't. I saw many downtowns that were coming back to life. Some people were calling it gentrifying it, others were calling it redevelopment.
I just call it bringing the city back to life and creating revenue for the city. So I hope that, and I ask a lot, you guys know, I ask a lot of questions, and I did that at every city I was at. And I hope that some of that, we can apply, some of the stuff that I learned, we can come back and apply it here. Obviously, it would take a group to make it happen, but I'll share that with you guys at any time when you guys are available. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Nava.
Just want to thank staff for all the work that you're doing. I appreciate it. I know we're building a really solid team, and everybody here is contributing, so I appreciate it very much. Today was also an important day for us just because we have hired, I think, some positions that we've needed, and I want to thank council for being supportive of that, and I'll keep that at that. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, George.
Very good. Well, I attended Ramon's Walk Welcome Back, I think. We had that out here, and it was great, and it was well attended. And I think all the city council members were there, and we had other political dignitaries there. I also like to do my homework on certain things, so I did go to Clexico and look at their tower site, which they rejected. I looked at the tower, and I've also zoomed in on the El Centro City Council meeting to look at their tower site, which they reluctantly accepted. And so I've done some homework in those areas and some additional information, but that's for another meeting. And other than that, I thank the staff. I've seen the police out there in action, fire departments out there. Everybody seems to be doing their job. Seems like a lot of sirens and emergency calls, but I know everybody's out there and busy. And Parks looks good, and everybody else in the city is doing great. So thank you very much. That's it.
That was good.
Yeah, I don't have much to report either, other than I was honored to attend and MC the event welcoming Ramon back to town. And there is a lot going on, I think, for each one of us personally in our lives, our families, our businesses, and the work that we do with the city. But we are, I think, each one of us grateful to have the opportunity to serve the city of Brawley in this way, and we're thankful to each staff member and employee that also works together as a team to keep our city running. So that'll wrap up our council member reports. Item 9, city attorney report.
I'll save it for closed session.
Okay.
And it is his birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Bill.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
I'm getting older.
Happy birthday, sir. How old?
59.
That's not old.
Next year will be the big one.
There you go.
Having a party?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's like, yeah.
You're not invited.
Item
We're only on a
10,
council meeting night.
item 10, city clerk report.
Yes, I want to announce the Christ Community Church, Brawley, is having the ribbon cutting on Sunday, September the 12th at 10 a.m. And if you want to attend, please RSVP with the city clerk or myself.
Okay, thank you.
10 a.m.?
I think it's, let me see here.
Is that for Christ Community, or was that another one?
Their service, their church
10 a.m.,
service starts
10
at 10, and I think
That's
they were
right.
going to do the ribbon cutting at 11:30 is what the pastor
yeah?
told me, yeah.
Can we get clarification on that?
Yes, please.
If you want to be there for the church service, it starts at 10, but they're going to do the ribbon cutting after that.
Oh, after, so like at 11?
11:30 is what the pastor told me.
11:30?
But we'll
Okay.
get clarification on that.
Okay,
11:30.
sounds good.
Okay, then we will move into closed session.
Can we go immediately into close?
Yeah.
We can go
Let's
immediately into
Immediately
closed.
into close, so we're going to ask everybody.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.